I came back from a business trip to find my sister and her kids in my apartment. When I asked them to leave, my whole family criticized me. Hello everyone. The tale of the day will astound you, but quickly, if you like this content, please click the subscribe button. Recently the channel has been a little quiet, but your support keeps it continuing. Let's get started. I'm a 28-year-old man who has spent the last 3 years living in my own apartment. I've always cherished my independence and personal space, and I work in software development. I went on a business trip 2 weeks ago to meet with clients all around the nation. When I departed, everything was as usual. My flat was spotless, well kept, and just the way I wanted it. After I returned, everything changed. Tired from traveling, I unlocked my door to discover my sister Sarah, 25F, and her 3 children, ages 3, 5 and 7, had moved into my house. I'm not referring to a couple bags for a quick trip. I'm referring to changed furniture, toys all over the place, kids' clothes in my spare bedroom, and food in my refrigerator that I most surely didn't purchase. I briefly believed I had entered the incorrect apartment. "Oh, you're back," my sister replied nonchalantly, as if this were absolutely normal, as she left the bathroom without even noticing me. I stood there, key still in hand, too astonished to answer. "Mom said you'd be home today." As I tried to comprehend what was occurring, the children ran over, thrilled to see their Uncle James. My private area, my apartment, had been totally overrun. When I eventually managed to speak, I questioned, "What the hell is going on?" Sarah clarified that she needed a temporary place to stay because she had been experiencing problems with her landlord. She apparently got permission from her parents to use my flat while I was abroad. She went on, "They said you wouldn't mind," as though that resolved the issue. I was enraged. I hadn't received a call. No one had sent a text. No one had considered asking the renter if it was acceptable to transfer a whole family into his unit. I called my parents right away, and I was even more irate after hearing their response. "Oh, James. I'm glad Sarah found a place to stay." My mom's landlord was being utterly irrational. My dad called me and told me that I was being self-centered, and that family helps family when I brought up the fact that they had allowed my sister to enter my apartment without my consent. He reminded me that helping my sister wouldn't kill me, and that I had all that extra room. I clarified that I pay a lot of money for my flat, because I want privacy. When I'm not traveling, I work from home, and having 3 children would make it impossible. In addition, my lease expressly forbids having long-term visitors without informing management. "Well, she's already settled in," was their reply. "You can't simply throw her out." I can, in fact. They treated me as like I was the irrational one for demanding my personal space back, even though it's my apartment. The children have been informed by Sarah that they will be staying with me for some time, and she didn't give me a direct response when I asked her what that meant. She replied she's researching her choices but hasn't taken any firm action when I questioned her about her plans to find a new location. Sarah and the kids have taken up my bedroom and the spare room, so I'm currently sleeping on my own couch. Now my neatly arranged apartment is in disarray. Everywhere you look you can find toys. I have no privacy, and the kids are noisy from the early hours of the morning till evening. I've given Sarah a week to come up with a different plan. I don't understand how it's reasonable to ask me to give up the apartment I pay for without even consulting my parents. Yet they think I'm being unkind. Am I being self-centered here? How can I regain my privacy without causing a family emergency? Update. The key that was not permitted. I want to start by saying thank you to everyone who supported and commented on my first post. It made me feel less insane for being angry about this circumstance. Since my last post, things have become worse. I spoke with Sarah directly after several of you recommended that I find out how she entered my flat in the first place. She didn't break in, it turns out. She received a key from my parents. Yes, it is what you read. My parents reportedly chose to give my sister the extra key to my apartment, which they kept for emergencies only, without telling me. They responded angrily when I confronted them about this. My mother remarked, "We knew you'd make a big deal out of it." My father dismissed my worries, saying I was overreacting, and that it's not like anything bad happened. Sarah needed help and you were away. What were we supposed to do? Let her and the kids be homeless? I pointed out that there were plenty of other options, that they could have let her stay with them, helped her find temporary housing, or at the very least called me to ask permission before letting her into my home. However, things have happened. I've been cleaning my apartment and found a number of missing or damaged items, along with a broken set of expensive noise-canceling headphones, stains on my couch that weren't there before, a signed baseball I had on display in a case, and my PlayStation and 3 games. Someone used markers to draw on my bedroom wall, and when I questioned Sarah about it, she became defensive, saying that she had no idea what the PlayStation or baseball were about, that the headphones were probably already broken, and that the stains and the wall artwork were just children being kids. My costly sheets, which I specifically purchased because they help me sleep better, are stained with what appears to be juice or Kool-Aid. Sarah's response: "They'll wash out. Stop being so materialistic. This is more than just a privacy invasion." I later found out that the kids had been sleeping in my bed while I was away. Now it's about respecting my property and boundaries. I've told Sarah that the 1-week deadline still applies. I've made it clear to my parents that they will never again have access to my apartment, and I've changed the locks, which I paid for myself, even though the landlord offered to split the cost after I explained the situation. The narrative has somehow turned into that I'm the villain in this story, because I want my own space back, and I'm upset about my possessions being damaged or missing. But I'm standing firm. This is my apartment. My parents are now giving me the silent treatment, and Sarah has been telling family members that I'm throwing her and the kids out on the street. I've offered to help Sarah find a new place and even lend her money for a security deposit, but I'm not going to back down on the deadline. These are my belongings, and I have every right to be upset about what happened. I'll provide another update at the end of the week. Update: the damage report and missing valuables. I wish I had better news to share. It's been 4 days since my last update. The PlayStation and games that went missing, Sarah lent them to her current boyfriend without asking me, the autographed baseball that was missing from its case. I've done a more comprehensive inventory of my flat, and found that the damage and missing things are worse than I first believed. When I opened the desk drawer where I keep important documents, I found a small lockbox with $500 in cash. My emergency fund was empty, and when I confronted Sarah about it, she admitted that she borrowed the money because she was short on cash and promised to reimburse me as soon as possible. However, one of the kids took it outside to play with, and it's now lost somewhere in the neighborhood park. I've taken pictures of everything and made a comprehensive list of the missing and damaged items totaling almost $2,000. I sent this list to Sarah and my parents, making it clear that I expect reimbursement, but they didn't provide a timeline or acknowledge the seriousness of taking money that wasn't hers. Their answers were predictable. The deadline I set is coming up, and Sarah hasn't tried to find other housing. Instead, she's intensified her efforts to make me feel bad by using the children as emotional leverage. Sarah says she doesn't have that kind of money right now, and my parents accused me of nickel and dimming my own sister during a trying time. Where are we supposed to go? The smallest of her children began to cry when she asked this question in front of them. Additionally, I now know more about her housing circumstances. Despite what my parents suggested, she was not homeless. Due to months of non-payment of rent, she was forced to leave her previous flat. This isn't an emergency, even though my parents provided financial support throughout that period. Everyone expects me to correct the cycle of recklessness that has culminated in this situation. The atmosphere in the flat has gotten even more heated. Apparently, as a form of retaliation for my insistence that the children go, Sarah has ceased cleaning up after them. Toys are all over the place, dishes are heaped in the sink, and the bathroom has been transformed into something I never would have imagined in a matter of days. I've tried setting limits by locking the door to my home office throughout the day, but the kids keep yelling for me and hammering on the door, which interrupts my business calls. Sarah doesn't try to reroute them, or show any consideration for my work schedule. Sarah had earlier complained that I wasn't helping her find a boyfriend in my apartment with food, so last night things reached a climax when I got back from grabbing takeaway for myself. I'd only met this man twice, but he was sitting on my couch, sipping my beer, and behaving as though he lived there. Sarah accused me of being domineering when I protested his presence, claiming that I had no right to govern her social circle. I reminded her that I have complete control over who is allowed inside my house as the legal tenant. After a heated argument, her partner left, but not before accusing me of being true to your own blood. Other family members have now been recruited by my parents to exert pressure on me. 2 aunts, an uncle, and even my grandmother have called to remind me that family comes first, and that I should be more sympathetic to Sarah's plight. I've discussed the matter with my landlord, and he's been surprisingly understanding. He acknowledged that it is against the conditions of my lease to have an undeclared residence, but he stated he would be accommodating given the situation. Even though Sarah is not listed on the lease, he has also hinted that we could have to start formal eviction procedures if she doesn't want to vacate. Though I'm praying it doesn't happen, I'm getting ready in case it does. 3 days remain till the deadline. After it passes, I'll provide another update. Update: family repercussions and eviction proceedings. As many of you anticipated, Sarah didn't try to leave or even explore for other lodging when the deadline drew near. Rather, she firmly asserted that she was aware of her rights, and that I was not allowed to evict her without giving her enough notice. Despite not actually being a renter, it appears that she has been receiving counsel regarding her rights. I formally gave Sarah a written notice with 30 days to leave the property after speaking with my landlord and a friend who is a lawyer. To ensure that there would be no doubt as to whether she received it, I personally handed this to her and sent it to her via certified mail. She laughed in my face in answer. She remarked, "Good luck with that." When my parents learned about the official notice, they became enraged and said, "I'm not going anywhere." My father yelled at me over the phone, saying that I was ruining the family and that he had raised me better. Taking a different tack, my mother called me in tears to express her disappointment and her inability to comprehend her own son prioritizing paperwork before family. They both declined to take Sarah and the children in. When Sarah's ex-husband, who is also the father of her children, got in touch with me, I realized that things had taken an unexpected turn. Sarah had apparently informed him that the children would be staying with my parents, rather than in my apartment. He was unhappy with the state of affairs and worried about his children's living circumstances. He said he had been attempting to acquire greater custody anyhow, and after hearing the whole tale, he offered to take the kids full-time until Sarah gets permanent home. Sarah went utterly crazy when she learned that I had spoken to her ex. She said I tried to take her children away and went behind her back. I no longer felt safe living in my own apartment because of her nasty behavior. While I continue to pay my rent, I have temporarily moved in with a buddy. Yesterday was the most startling development. I received a call from my landlord alerting me to a loud complaint coming from my apartment. He went to look into it and discovered that, in addition to Sarah, her children, and her boyfriend, there were 2 other people, friends of hers, who had evidently moved in as well. This was my landlord's last straw. Now that formal eviction procedures have been started against Sarah for being an unauthorized occupant, he is entirely in favor of them. We must follow the correct legal procedures as she has established residency by remaining there. However, the lawyer for my landlord is trying to get things forward as quickly as possible. I've told Sarah that I won't take legal action for the damages and stolen goods if she vacates the property before the eviction is completed. If not, I'm willing to sue her for the entire sum in small claims court. Now, instead of being angry, my parents are trying to negotiate. In order to allow Sarah time to find a place without the blemish of an eviction on her record, they have offered to pay for a hotel stay for 2 weeks if I withdraw the eviction procedures. Since 2 weeks would probably evolve into another last-minute, urgent situation with the same demands, I denied this offer. Now, the larger family is split. While some family members are sympathetic to my plight and have privately offered their support, others still portray me as the bad guy who is torturing my sister and her kids out of self-interest. I've kept records of everything along this entire process. The state of my residence, the unapproved residence, the things that are missing, and any correspondence. Despite the tremendous pressure from my family, my lawyer friend reassures me that I'm in good legal standing. My relationship with my parents has changed, which is the most surprising result of this circumstance. Although I've always understood they gave Sarah some leeway, it's shocking how much they've disregarded my rights and boundaries in this case. This pattern has persisted throughout our lives, I've discovered. My parents allow Sarah to cause trouble, and I'm supposed to put up with both of them without complaining. I'm breaking that habit for the first time, and it's both devastating and empowering. As soon as the matter is fixed, I will publish a final update. Last update, conclusion, and contemplation. My previous update was 2 months ago, and now I'm finally writing this for my own apartment once more. The matter has been settled, albeit with considerable repercussions for the family. First, the useful result. Sarah was forcibly removed from my flat, along with all of her unapproved visitors. About 6 weeks after my last post, the sheriff finally arrived to serve the eviction notice, although the process took longer than anticipated because of certain court system delays. Sarah wasn't there when this happened. 2 days prior to the planned eviction, she had finally left the property, taking her remaining possessions with her. My place was in terrible shape. In addition to the harm I had already recorded, there were fresh problems: broken furniture, discolored carpets, holes in the walls, and what seemed to be intentional harm to my personal possessions that had been left behind. Although he was understanding, my landlord insisted that the unit be returned to its previous state. To speed up the process and regain my own space, I originally paid for the repairs myself, totaling about $3,700. Even though I had previously offered to drop the lawsuit if Sarah departed willingly, I ultimately made the decision to sue her for my missing and destroyed belongings. My viewpoint was altered by the intentional harm, and I believe she should be held accountable for her deeds. In addition to the $500 I borrowed from my lockbox, I received the whole $2,150 for the stolen and damaged goods. I didn't care if I ever saw that money, but I did care that the judgment was documented. In the aftermath for the family, Sarah is now residing with our parents. She had nowhere else to go after burning ties with several friends who had briefly taken her in, and exhausting all other choices. Her father, who saw the living circumstances in my apartment, and applied for an emergency custody adjustment, is currently the primary caregiver for her children. Sarah no longer has primary custody, although she does have weekend visitation. My parents and I no longer have the same relationship. They finally appeared to realize how bad the issue was when the eviction was put into effect. My mother called to apologize for the way things got out of hand, not for giving Sarah my key, or for invading my personal space. At best, it was a partial acknowledgement. My dad has been less cooperative. He insists that the legal path was an unnecessary escalation, and that I ought to have figured out a way to make it work. He is especially furious over the custody dispute involving Sarah's kids, which he strangely attributes to me instead of Sarah's decisions. We're talking again, but it's tense and we don't talk much. Sarah's predicament is off limits, and I've made it clear what subjects I'm ready to talk about. I've also made it very plain that they will never be able to access any of my residences again, and I won't be there to support Sarah in the event of another emergency. Though I still occasionally hear remarks about being the one who evicted his own sister, the extended family has mostly moved on to other dramas. I no longer justify myself or explain the circumstances. Individuals who are important already comprehend, and those who are not likely to do so in the future. The best thing that has happened is that I now value true friends more. My co-workers who put up with my inconsistent work schedule, my buddy who allowed me to remain with him during the eviction process, and even my landlord who supported me, rather than against me. I learned what true support looks like from these people. I've also gained important knowledge on establishing and upholding boundaries. I was expected to adjust to the family dynamic for years, where Sarah's needs always came first. It hurt to break that cycle, but it was essential. I no longer feel bad about defending my own time, space, and assets. Since the eviction, we haven't had a straight conversation about Sarah. I didn't reply to her one text message in which she accused me of destroying her life and removing her kids. She's already starting fresh dramas at our parents' house and searching for her next chance to get out of debt, based on what I've heard from family sources. Although the entire journey has been draining and occasionally tragic, I am confident that I made the proper choices all along the way. My place is once again my haven. Now that I have a calm place once more, my work has steadied. Most significantly, I've made it clear that no one, not even my family, will take advantage of me. We are grateful to everyone who helped and encouraged us during this difficult time. During the toughest of the familial pressure, your affirmation kept me strong. When everyone else's definition of good requires you to give up your boundaries, your personal space, and your dignity, there are moments when you have to be the bad guy. Thanks for watching and sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next drama-filled episode. I spent years bailing out my brother, giving him money and support, until one night he showed me how little I really meant to him. I'm James, and I'm 28 years old. I'm the type of man who has heard it all the time. Family comes first. Perhaps it was the way our mother brought us up after our father departed. Or perhaps it was simply something I held on to because it provided some warmth to my existence. For whatever reason, ever since I can remember, anytime my younger brother Sean has ripped anything apart, I've been the one picking up the bits. He's too young to give a damn, yet he's old enough to know better at age 26. Sean has always had a lot to offer. When things go well, he's the golden boy. When they don't, he's the ghost. And I suppose I was the fool who believed that he would ultimately grow out of it if I simply provided enough love, support, and affection. As is typically the case, it began modestly. "Hey dude, I don't have enough money for rent." He only sent this one SMS, and made a desperate call since his account was frozen and he had forgotten about his credit card charge. It was only temporary, I reminded myself. As the months stretched into a year, the sums increased, but I reminded myself, everyone struggles a little in their 20s. $1,200 to fix his automobile, $200 here, $600 there. Sean always had the same grateful wide-eyed expression, swearing that this would be the last time. I really wanted to believe him. He made another call around 3 days prior to New Year's Eve. This time I was in line at the grocery store, carrying a bunch of items for a small private gathering I had organized with some friends. His speech was hurried and out of breath. He had already had his automobile repossessed due to non-payment, and he was on the verge of losing it again if he didn't pay $2,500 right away. He cried and begged, saying that if he lost the automobile, he would be left jobless. That he was at last taking his life seriously. I sent him the money against all my remaining common sense. I kept it a secret from everyone. A part of me felt ashamed of how readily I gave in. The problem is that you can ignore someone for a long time when they reveal themselves to you. However, even the thickest rose-colored glasses eventually break. On New Year's Eve, Sean announced that he was going to a party in a nearby town. I thought he would be occupied with his normal activities, such as getting wasted and making promises he wouldn't remember the next day. Along with a few close pals, I stayed at home. We played board games, counted down the clock like children, and consumed much too much junk food. It was pleasant and serene, unlike anything I had experienced in a long time. I even began giving myself permission to think that perhaps this year will be different. Perhaps in 2025 I would no longer feel as though I was always dragging my brother along with me. Then my phone broke just as everything was falling into place. Sean had sent the text. "All you are is a burden. Avoid it." That was it. No apology, no explanation, nothing. 7 words that were more powerful than any blow ever could be. I initially assumed that must have been an error. He might have been intoxicated. He might have intended to text someone else. I blinked and gazed at the screen for a long minute, reading it again as if I looked closely enough the words might change. However, they didn't. The group conversation then became active. Pictures of Sean lifting a glass with some of his party friends while beaming broadly. One of them wrote, "Freedom from leeches. Knew you knew me," as the caption for the picture. Sean was prominently shown, appearing to be completely carefree. It was as if the thousands of dollars I had struggled to make ends meet meant nothing at all. As if I meant nothing at all. I remained silent. I didn't answer. I didn't yell at him, call him, or send him a lengthy text message in rage. I simply sat there and allowed the icy emptiness to take me. I pretended to smile and said I was simply exhausted, but my buddies must have seen the change. But where that gentle hope had been, something hard and sharp began to grow inside. That night, I hardly slept at all. I kept thinking about all the times I had saved him. Every time I stood in his way of facing the punishment he deserved, he would smile, give me a slap on the back, and immediately resume his destructive behavior. That's when I realized I hadn't been doing anything for him for years. I had been giving in to him. He didn't see me as his brother. I was an idiot, a crutch, and a pocketbook. When daylight finally arrived, I knew precisely what I had to do. I started by opening my laptop and retrieving Sean's auto loan payment history. Finding the document with my name on it didn't take long. Naturally, he asked me to co-sign when he was in a dire situation, and the dealership didn't believe his credit score. Technically, I was still the car's primary owner. When Sean received the keys, he didn't even read the fine print. All he wanted to do was show his friends his new, sparkling toy. Next, I retrieved the bank statements, which displayed the number of payments that had been temporarily deducted from my account while Sean was getting back on his feet. Rather quickly, temporary life had become permanent. And I'd let it happen like a fool. The best thing is that a tow order was already in place in case Sean missed any more payments because he had already missed so many. He was also 2 days past due. Once more, it would only require one phone call. Around 8:30 a.m., I arrived. Before he could even pull himself from the residence of the stranger he had fainted in. The towing business claimed they would be pleased to expedite the pickup after instantly recalling the case. All I had to do was verify that I was the legal owner. I grinned. Yes, I am unquestionably the owner. I was enjoying a cup of coffee and watching the tow truck pull back into Sean's driveway when I parked my car across the street from his house at 9:45 a.m. Sean's automobile was still there, crookedly parked as if he'd stumbled out of it last night without thinking twice. It was a gaudy little red Mustang that even on his best days he couldn't afford. Within 5 minutes, the Mustang was off the ground, swaying slightly as the tow truck driver fastened everything into place. The driver had jumped out and connected it up with professional speed. I noticed Sean's front door creaking open as he drove away. He had a wild mess of hair, was barefoot, and had no shirt on. He was obviously attempting to take in what he was seeing, as he blinked against the morning sun. He stood there frozen for a moment. Then, shouting something I couldn't hear from my car and swinging his arms, he ran toward the street. Not even slowing down did the tow truck. I barely heard Sean's voice shouting down the street as I rolled down my window. Hello? Confused and in a panic. After that, my phone broke. A call is coming in. Sean. I saw it ring. Give it another ring. And once more. His first text message of the morning appeared on my screen when it eventually went to voicemail. Where's my C, dude? Leaning back and allowing the sun's warmth to penetrate the cold morning air, I placed the phone face down on the passenger seat. I didn't feel like the one bearing dead weight for the first time in a very long time. But I wasn't done yet. Not at all, as the actual storm was still approaching and Sean's car was only the first step. I just let the sensation take hold for a few more minutes as I sat there. It wasn't precisely happy. It was more serene than that, akin to being on the edge of a field after everything had been destroyed by a fire. Free, empty, and charred. A new beginning. My hands stopped shaking. I didn't have a racing heart. I wasn't rushing to mend Sean's newest catastrophe for the first time in years. He left a mess for me to clear, and I wasn't running to pick up bits. At last, I was allowing everything to crash as it should have. The actual consequences started as soon as I arrived home. Sean destroyed my phone. 6 missed calls, 12 and 19. Texts began to pour in, first in a confused panic, then in wrath, and then, as they turned the bend, in full-on rage. What did you do? Respond to me. This isn't amusing. I'm going to call the police. I laughed at that one. He might give it a shot. The documents and the title were in my name. Legally speaking, Sean had been using my car for months without making any payments. I was doing precisely what I was legally allowed to do, if anything. Sean, however, was not the kind to let the truth hold him back. He was beating on the door of my apartment by midday. I didn't respond. The muffled thuds of his fist hitting the wood, the occasional shout of, "Open up," and the words, "You're ruining my life," drifted through as I ate a sandwich at my kitchen table. I had an exact mental image of him. Hairy, bloodshot eyes, pacing like a stymied animal, blaming everyone but himself. He changed his strategy after seeing that I wasn't going to the door. He placed a message beneath the door. It took me an hour to even pick it up. I did, but there was only one phrase, written furiously in black marker, "You'll be sorry." That's Sean, always threatening to do something when he couldn't win a fight. I reclined in my chair and gazed at the ceiling, reflecting on all the events that had preceded this. Bending for years. Years of repressing disappointment and rage. I kept convincing myself that if I waited a little longer, he would change. As I ate ramen noodles for dinner, I reflected on the times I had paid his rent to keep him from being evicted. He had squandered his money at a casino, so I sold my game console, my only true outlet, to pay his utility bill. The birthday presents that were supposed to arrive but never did. When he said he would reimburse me the following week, it invariably turned into the following month. The following month always turned into a never. Worst of all, I recalled his smile when he was feeling good. Before he decided I was a burden, a parasite and disposable, I was all charm, bright teeth and backslaps. I was no longer expendable. His number was not blocked by me. I didn't have to. It was so much sweeter to ignore him. It was a silent form of retaliation that tasted better than anything dirty or noisy, so I let him scream into space while I went about my day. The following day, I gave the bank a call regarding the account I had foolishly left open for him to begin saving under my supervision. Surprise, surprise. Once more, it was overdrawn. No more. I took a lunch break and closed the account. He claimed he never used the credit card, but I canceled it since he had a secondary user slot on it and had accrued $1,200 in Uber Eats and bar taps. I canceled it, paid the remaining balance myself, and severed all financial ties between us. Cutting the final rotten rope from a sinking ship was how it felt. The last component then arrived. Just before New Year's, I sent him $2,500, do you recall? Yes, my bank handled the wire transfer. I also had the receipts to show it wasn't a gift, because Sean had texted me to promise to pay it back as a loan. That afternoon, I submitted a small claims lawsuit. I didn't anticipate receiving my money back. I didn't care that Sean was having trouble making ends meet. I wanted it documented. I wanted to serve him. Like a foul stench, I wanted the paper trail to follow him everywhere. By the time the court date arrived, I pictured him attempting to explain to a judge how, despite his declaration of freedom, a few well-placed signatures were still able to bring him down. I wasn't finished yet, though. I began going through every email, every receipt, every favor, and every payment. After a long, chaotic year, I quietly and precisely chronicled everything, much like an accountant balancing a ledger. Yes, it was emotional, but it was also exhausting. On some nights, I stayed up too late, questioning whether I had gone too far. I might as well forget about it. But then I recalled how Sean had looked at me in those pictures, smiling, toasting to his freedom from me, raising a glass, and laughing with his buddies. Let go of the man who never turned out his lights. Get rid of the person who filled his tank with gas. No longer bound by the man who fought his battles for him when he was too weak or sluggish to do so yourself. I wasn't wanted by him. Okay, I was finished. When I received a very intriguing piece of mail a few days later, the final piece, the one that would truly cause everything to fall apart, fell into place. I was trying to get Sean a better deal on his insurance, therefore it was a notice concerning his coverage, which had been combined with mine. Due to non-payment, his coverage was cancelled. I was aware that Sean was unable to pay for his own insurance. I was also aware that he had most likely not even realized yet, but he would, particularly after learning that driving without insurance wasn't merely a minor in our state. He could face severe fines, license suspension, and, let's face it, a rough time if he was pulled over or involved in an accident. I felt the weight of the envelope as I sat on my couch and turned it over in my hands. There was no gloating, not even joy. Relief was felt. I was relieved that I was no longer carrying it. Sean was relieved that he would at last experience true consequences for the first time in his life. And the repercussions was going to be stunning when it did come. But I simply had to wait first. Await the subsequent call. The subsequent frantic knock on my door. The following text is a cry for assistance, and I would be prepared when the time came. It took very little time. 3 days later, just before noon, Sean's name appeared on my phone once more. I didn't respond. All I did was watch it ring. My stomach's old knot of guilt, which used to tighten, is smaller and looser now. After a minute, a text message appeared. I really need your assistance, bro. I put the phone down, this time facing up, and returned to my coffee, giving him time to process the fact that the bridge he had destroyed would not magically repair itself. Another minute went by. I'm trapped, man, please. Was stopped. No coverage. They're discussing towing once more. I promise to repay you. Hurry up. It nearly made me chuckle. Nearly. The irony was simply too flawless. He was unaware that there was no longer an automobile that could be towed. The Mustang had long since vanished. It was already up for auction 2 states away from the loan business. Regarding his license, they would be able to see the unpaid infractions he had accrued under my insurance without having to pay a thing if they were thoroughly reviewing his record. The kind of mess that takes more than a few words of apology to resolve. There was another text. Bro, please, I beseech you. What I do matters to me. It dawned on me then. The desperation had become real. Sean didn't usually cry like a crocodile. They were the ones he paraded whenever he needed cash or pity. This was raw, ugly, and real. I ought to have felt guilty. Once, perhaps, I would have a long time ago. However, I only experienced a somber sense of fulfillment. The kind that eventually becomes a weight off your chest after years of being exploited, disregarded, and thrown away. One more call. One more voicemail. He left one this time. At first I didn't open it. For a time I just sat there and gazed out the window, watching the clouds pass in thick sluggish clumps. The world was peaceful now, and I didn't feel like I was waiting for the next calamity to hit my door. Sean's voice sounded little and defeated when I eventually listened to the voicemail. "Man, please, James. I mean it. I can't drive the car," they remark. "They claim that they will tow it. I have no other people. I promise to find a way to reimburse you. Just one last time, please. I am aware that I made a mistake. I'm aware that what I said wasn't appropriate. Don't leave me like this, please. I apologize. It was there. I've been waiting for this apology for years. And it had no meaning whatsoever. As it wasn't authentic. Not because he knew what he was doing. It wasn't because he understood how much he had offended me. He needed something, that's why. Once more, always." I didn't answer. Rather, I launched the app for my bank account, the new, pristine one I had just started a few days prior, and gazed at the balance. Mine. Safe. Undisturbed. It seemed to be a little, concrete indication that I had at last prioritized myself, that I was no longer the family ATM, and that I wasn't responsible for Sean's errors. I looked over his social media later that evening just out of curiosity. Although I shouldn't have, I did. From the side of the road he was posting, an angry, blurry selfie with police lights flashing in the backdrop. Some people are only concerned when they are in need. I suppose it's better for me to have no false family. Rust betrayed, more knowledge gained. The remarks were harsh. The majority came from his party friends, who delighted to add insults but didn't know half the story. Some are sympathetic, but the most are merely joking about being arrested or getting wrecked to start 2025 off right. Some of our common friends sent comments inquiring about his well-being. I remained silent. The post didn't appeal to me. Sean was somewhat correct, so I wasn't even tempted to. Fake family was better for him. I was too. When I woke up the following morning, the flat was peaceful. Just sunlight streaming through the blinds and the quiet, steady hum of a life that is now becoming mine again. No desperate texts, no missed calls. Feeling lighter than I had in years, I took a stroll about the neighborhood and breathed in the cool January air. Waiting for the next explosion is over. Fixing those who didn't want to be fixed is no longer an option. Sean had one more message waiting for me when I returned home. This time it wasn't furious. It wasn't an emergency. There were only 2 words. I apologize. Sean apologized, but I didn't respond. After the first time, I didn't even open the mail again. Nothing else could be said. I did not despise him. It would have been simpler to hate. To be honest, hate at least suggests that you are still concerned and that you have a keen sense of life. Distance was what I felt now. It was similar to glancing at an old photograph of a life I hardly recognized. Sean stopped talking for a few weeks. No phone calls, texts, or unexpected visits. I wasn't sure whether he had finally figured it out or whether life had just swept him away for a bit. I didn't chase him anyway. I didn't follow up. For once I paid attention to my own life. When I did, the speed at which things began to alter was almost shocking. I began returning to the gym. Just for me, not for anybody else, and not to prove anything. I made contact with old acquaintances that I had gradually lost touch with over the years. Friends who were fed up with my being treated like a doormat have quietly moved on. I even began taking on additional job shifts. I had ambitions of my own now. Things I wanted to save for, and places I wanted to see. Not because I needed the money to clean up someone else's mess. Sean's world, as I imagined it, diminished as mine expanded. I ran across an old mutual friend of ours who used to know Sean well around 2 months after that crazy New Year's Eve. We met one Saturday afternoon at a neighborhood coffee shop, and his name was Nate. In the uneasy dance of 2 individuals who have too much history in common and not enough recent connection, we engaged in the typical small talk. But Nate eventually mentioned Sean. "Have you recently spoken to your brother?" he questioned, not looking up as he stirred his coffee. "Nope," I replied plainly. Then, as if unsure of my level of interest, he looked up at me. With a shrug I said, "He's, not doing so great, man." Nate nodded slowly and said, "Not really my problem anymore." "Yeah," I assumed. "I just wanted to let you know. He's currently living with a female and barely making ends meet. He lost his job a few weeks ago and he's reportedly already overdue on his rent. I remained silent. What could be said? Sean's path was always going in this direction. I had been in the way, fixing every pothole he stumbled into, and that was the only thing that had ever delayed it. After hesitating, Nate continued. He's been telling everyone that you left him homeless and abandoned him. I chuckled quietly to myself. Just exhausted, not even resentful. It sounds about right. You're not angry. No, I told the truth. I just finished. Saying it aloud brought a certain calm. After giving me a clumsy shoulder clap as if he wasn't sure how to handle the subject, Mate and I parted ways. Later that evening, I considered Sean's version of events, in which he fabricated the victimization to fit his own narrative. How he most likely portrayed me as the unappreciative, nasty sibling that kicked him when he was on the ground. I used to care what other people thought of me. I used to be consumed with it. No more. If the people who mattered cared enough to find out, they would know the truth, just as I did. It was a slow spring that year. Clear blue mornings that make you want to roll down the windows and drive aimlessly replaced the chilly, dreary clouds. I started simply getting in the car, choosing a direction, and driving away. About 40 minutes outside the city, I found myself on the outskirts of a little village one Saturday. Nestled between a second-hand clothing store and a bakery was a little bookshop. On a whim, I stopped by and spent 2 hours looking through old paperbacks and discussing my favorite authors with the proprietor. I purchased a handcrafted journal, a few books, and a couple of mugs. Even though it was just a Saturday spin done the way I wanted it to be, free of commitments, urgent calls, or impending danger, it felt like the greatest triumph of my life. I received a letter in the mail a few days later. Not emails or texts, but actual mail. I could tell right away that the handwriting was sloppy and hurried. I nearly tossed it away without opening it, Sean. Nearly. However, my curiosity overcame me. There was only one page of paper inside. James, I understand that you most likely don't give a damn anymore, and I wouldn't hold it against you. I wanted to apologize for everything. I was self-centered. I exploited you. Since you were my brother and that's what brothers are meant to do, I told myself it wasn't that horrible. I now understand how much I used and hurt you. I apologize. The only person who ever made a sincere effort to assist me was you. Now that I think about it, I wrecked it. My goal is to improve. I'm not counting on you to believe me. All I wanted was for you to know. Even though I didn't deserve it, I am grateful for everything you did. I sat there for a while, Sean, flipping the letter over in my hands. It was the most sincere thing he had ever spoken to me. More truthful. And perhaps, just possibly, this time he meant it. I didn't write back though. Not out of spite, not out of rage, but out of comprehension. Not all life chapters are intended to be revisited, not because of hatred, but because rebuilding them would only result in the same circle of pain. Some bridges remain destroyed. Allowing someone back into your life is not always a sign of forgiveness. At times it simply entails sending them best wishes from afar. After carefully folding the letter and putting it in a drawer, I continued with my day. And I came to a lovely realization when summer finally arrived, bringing long evenings and bright golden light. I was no longer surviving. I was still alive. And I was just bearing my own burden, not anyone else's. Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. I gave my sister $45,000 in free housing. But when I refused to gift her my apartment, my family turned against me. I, a 28 female, am still in disbelief at their actions, so I need to let my family know what's going on. I've put a lot of effort into building my life, and I currently serve as the financial director at a large software business in Seattle. My younger sister Emily, 25 female, has been renting my Bellevue apartment for the past 2.5 years, and I also own my current home downtown. Let me tell you a little about our family's history. Emily was always the favorite child growing up. She was discovered sneaking out to parties when I was studying finance and doing unpaid internships. She was receiving police citations for disturbing the peace at Ali Beach when I received my first promotion. She chose to become an influencer after I completed a big deal at work last year, maxing out our parents' credit cards to purchase $5,000 worth of camera gear that is now sitting in their garage gathering dust. In spite of all, I've always made an effort to help her. When she and her 25-year-old fiancé Ethan needed a place to live, I gave them my Bellevue condo for free. I've also paid for her car repairs and twice wiped off her credit card debt. No utilities, no rent, nothing. For their wedding, which is in 3 weeks, I even gave them $45,000. I got a text from Emily last week. Tonight the family is having supper at mom and dad's. Important topics to talk about at the wedding. I thought they were in need of additional funds for some absurd wedding extra, such as the ice sculpture they had been discussing. I didn't know what was really going to happen. Something didn't feel right as I got to my parents' place. In the living room, Emily, Ethan, mom and dad all snuggled together, whispering to one another. As soon as I entered, they fell silent. The tension was evident at supper. While dad engaged in awkward small chat about his golf game, mom continued to refill wine glasses. At last, Emily cleared her throat as her mother brought out dessert. She said, "We need to discuss your wedding gift," with an unusually serious expression. "Well," Emily continued, looking at Ethan and then our parents before going back to me. "We've all been talking. And we think there's something specific you should give us instead." I raised an eyebrow. "I thought the $45,000 I already gave you was my gift." "Your apartment," she continued. I waited, fork suspended mid-air. I almost believed they were kidding when they said, "The one in Bellevue where Ethan and I have been living." However, their solemn facial expressions conveyed a different message. "You can't be serious," I remarked, setting down my glass. They actually expected me to give them my $450,000 property as a wedding present. "You think you're so perfect with your fancy job and your 2 apartments. You're selfish, Catherine. I already gave you $45,000 for this wedding. Not to mention you've been living in my apartment rentrée for 2.5 years. I don't even make you pay utilities." That's when things got ugly. Emily's face flushed with anger and she exploded. "Your sister has a point," Mom said quietly. "You're successful. You have another apartment. Emily is getting married and starting a family. This would be such a wonderful gesture." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I stared at her, stunned by the sudden outburst, but what followed was even worse. Emily yelled, "Look at you, 28 years old, married to your job. In a few years, no one will even want you anymore. At least I've found love. How am I the selfish one here? Because you're hoarding all this property when you don't even need it. I've been supporting Emily for years." "Don't be greedy, Catherine," Dad said sternly. "Family should come first." I felt as though I was in some kind of twisted alternate reality. "I can't believe this," I said, my voice shaking. I looked at my parents, expecting them to step in and tell Emily she had gone too far, but instead they nodded in agreement with her statements. "You just got lucky with your job. Some of us have to work in the real world." That was rich coming from someone who had never held a job for more than 6 months. Lucky? I worked my ass off through college, did unpaid internships, and put in 80-hour weeks to get to where I am. Do you have any idea how many hours I put in to afford those apartments? How many years did I spend paying off those mortgages? Oh, please. Emily rolled her eyes. I shot back. You want me to just give away my property? Property that I worked incredibly hard for, and that I'm still paying the mortgage on. How dare you, Mom snapped. Your sister is trying to build a life with Ethan. They want to start a family. And what about my stability? She asked. The room erupted in chaos as Ethan, speaking for the first time, said, "Once we get settled, start our family." Absolutely not. I interrupted. The apartment isn't for sale, and it's certainly not a gift. In fact, given how you're all acting, maybe it's time you found somewhere else to live. I'm leaving. This conversation is over. You're going to end up alone with nothing but your precious apartments. Emily screamed after me as I headed for the door. Mom began screaming that I was destroying the family, and Dad slammed his hand on the table and demanded that I stop being such a pain in the ass. How could they do this to me? How could they treat me like an ATM with an apartment to hand over? I sobbed as I slammed the door behind me and practically ran to my car, my hands shaking so much that I could hardly get the key in the ignition. The following day, I was barely able to concentrate at work. I turned off my phone and tried to concentrate on my work, but by the end of the day, I knew I had to check my sister's social media. Mom, Catherine, please be reasonable. Your sister needs this. Dad, call us immediately. Your behavior was unacceptable. Emily, you've always been jealous of me. You're just bitter because no one loves you. My own sister's decision to choose financial belongings over family is heartbreaking. It seems that some people will never comprehend the actual meaning of life. She regularly vents our family issues there, and sure enough, there was a post. The comments were pouring in. Oh my God, what happened? Family should always come first. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Emily was controlling the conversation and portraying me as the bad guy by making ambiguous, dramatic claims about having toxic siblings and prioritizing money over family. Then I received a text from my aunt. What's going on, Catherine? Your mother called me and bemoaned the fact that you're not helping your sister. I didn't answer, so what could I say? That my whole family is expecting me to give away hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of property? That they're emotionally blackmailing me because I refused? But things were going to get much worse. I went to check on my Bellevue apartment the following day, but when I got there and tried to use my key, it didn't work. My property's locks had been changed, so I took out my phone and contacted Emily, who after a few rings gave me a chilly, "What do you want? Why have my apartment's locks been changed?" I made a demand. After a pause, Emily actually chuckled and said, "Catherine, it's not your apartment anymore. We now own it." Are you insane? I am the owner of that unit. I covered the cost. It's mine. Not for long, she muttered. Additionally, don't waste your time threatening to sue me or contact the police. You would never sue your own sister, as we both know. Catherine. The line died. I was stunned as I stood there looking at my phone. Calling our parents was my first thought, but I knew they would never support me. They didn't. I poured a big glass of wine for myself when I got back to my flat and settled down on my couch. My thoughts were racing with potential fixes. I could make a police call. I might file a lawsuit against them. However, would I truly want to witness my sister's arrest? My phone beeped with a notice as I considered my alternatives. Emily had made a new social media post. I opened it against my better judgment. As I read her post, I felt sick to my stomach. My sister Catherine will be attending our wedding in 3 weeks, but Ethan and I, along with my parents, have chosen not to invite her. Nobody deserves to be here on our big day if they don't act like family. We are excited to celebrate with our really loved ones who know what family is all about. Numerous family friends and relatives have already left dozens of comments on the page, the most of which were confused or inquired as to what had transpired. Everyone was left to conjecture, because Emily was not answering any of them. My phone began ringing almost instantly with calls from aunts, uncles and cousins who wanted to know what was happening. I paid them all no attention. What could I say? That my entire family turned against me when I refused to give my sister my flat as a wedding present. I poured another glass of wine after finishing mine and shutting off my phone. It felt like a dream. I was merely a woman attending a family dinner 24 hours ago. Now, 2 weeks prior to her wedding, my sister was publicly humiliating me. Something stiffened inside me as the immediate shock subsided. They believed they were in control and could intimidate and coerce me into ceding my property. They were mistaken. I could play hardball with them if they wanted to. I had to wait for the appropriate time, though. I needed to conduct some planning. One update. Because I needed to make sure everything was in order, I haven't spoken up yet. It is necessary to share what transpired at my sister's wedding yesterday. I carefully planned for 2 weeks following the lock change event and my family's attempted property grab. I first discussed my rights as a property owner with the legal team at my company. What I already knew was validated by them. Regardless of family relationships, it is illegal to change locks without the owner's consent. I got in touch with John, a locksmith I knew from last year when I had locked myself out of my apartment in the heart of the city. I told him I needed a special favor. You can meet me on Saturday at 8 a.m. at my Bellevue property. Without my consent, the current residents changed the locks. Without hesitation, he agreed. I then hired professional movers and made a reservation for a storage unit close to the apartment, providing them with very detailed instructions for the wedding day. I also kept a record of everything. Screenshots of their text messages, recordings of their menacing voicemails, and images of their social media posts. The wedding day was yesterday. I was aware that the event will take place at 2 p.m. at the Salish Lodge, so the morning would be spent making preparations. With my heart racing, I parked my Bellevue apartment around the corner at 7:45 a.m. John showed up at exactly 8 a.m. As he got closer to the door, he said, "You sure about this?" Showing him my ID and property deed, I said, "Absolutely. I need to reclaim my property." A few minutes later, he had the door open and was putting in new locks. When I entered, I was horrified by what I saw. Without my consent, They had entirely redecorated. Bold wallpaper now covered the walls that I had painted a grayish neutral color. Gaudy curtains had taken the place of my bespoke blinds. They had even taken out some of my furniture and put their own in its place. At 8:30 a.m., the movers arrived. Sharp. I had them pack everything that pertained to Emily and Ethan as I walked them through each room systematically. Everything was packed into boxes, including their furniture, electronics, clothing, and hygiene. Even though my hands were shaking, I was determined. My phone was inundated with notifications around 9:45 a.m. It seems that one of Emily's bridesmaids had noticed the moving truck while driving past the property. I was inundated with calls and texts in a matter of minutes. "What on earth are you doing, Emily? Stop this right now, Mom, Catherine. Your sister's wedding day is being ruined by you, Dad. I'm going to call the cops, Ethan." None of them got a response from me. Rather, I sent them all to my lawyer, who was waiting. He promptly wrote a formal notification to each of them regarding improper property modifications and unlawful lock changes. Difications. Everything was loaded and packaged by 11 a.m. While I oversaw a skilled cleaning staff, the movers made their way to the storage container. My phone was constantly buzzing. "You wicked witch, Emily. You're ruining my house when I'm getting ready for my wedding. How could you have treated your sister like this on her wedding day, Mom? This cannot be forgiven, Dad. You're not our daughter anymore." I set up the security cameras and took some last pictures of the spotless apartment around midday. I then wrote Emily a message. "Best wishes on your wedding day. Unit 456 at Eastside Storage is a secure place to keep your possessions. 7753 is the access code. You've got 20 days to gather everything. You must realize that it's time to find a place of your own now that you're married. The only wedding present you deserve is this." At 6 p.m., I set the message to go out, just as I knew their reception would begin. After that, I returned home, poured a glass of champagne, and bided my time. I had another phone explosion at 6:01 p.m. I just shut it off and had a bubble bath this time. I felt totally satisfied with my choices for the first time in weeks. Curiosity overcame me at midnight, and I checked social media. A tearful tirade about her insane sister ruining her ideal day was tweeted by Emily. However, there was an intriguing development in the comments. Questions were being asked. "Hold on, did you attempt to move into her apartment? So you changed the locks when you were renting there? You thought she would offer you a property worth $450,000? The public's perception was shifting. My cousin Rachel, who had always been close to Emily, just sent me a private message after learning the truth. "I'm shocked that they thought you would give them your property. You did the right thing, for what it's worth." I found more than 200 text messages and 47 missed calls when I got up this morning. I've never read them. In order to begin getting the flat ready for legitimate tenants, those who will actually pay rent, I instead got in touch with a property management business. I did answer the phone when my aunt called. She said, "Your mother is hysterical. Claims that everything has been damaged by you. Did she mention that they attempted to take my belongings and changed my locks?" Calmly, I asked. A pause. "No, she didn't mention that." I believed so. Ethan's father just sent me an email requesting that I take urgent action to resolve this matter. They now need money for a rental deposit, so apparently they had to postpone their honeymoon in the Maldives. If it weren't so depressing, the irony would be amusing. I disagree with some who might consider my actions on their wedding day to be harsh. They decided not to invite me to the wedding. They decided to modify my hair. They decided to attempt stealing my belongings. There are repercussions for actions. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with my attorney to talk about restraining orders. My family is sending me more and more frightening messages. Therefore, I believe I will need them. But for now, I'm content to sit in my apartment in the heart of the city and enjoy the tranquility, knowing that my property is safe and that my limits are finally set. Losing a family member is sometimes necessary to regain your dignity. The second update. 2 weeks have passed since the incident on the wedding day, and everything has changed. I'm here to tell you how justice was done at last. Let me start by expressing my gratitude to everyone who liked my previous post. I learned from your remarks that I wasn't incorrect to defend what was rightfully mine. Let me now explain how I completely reversed my family's fortunes. Regarding Emily, Ethan, and my parents' defamatory social media statements, my lawyers submitted formal cease and desist letters to them the day following the wedding. However, that was only the start. We made an intriguing discovery while collecting evidence. Emily used more than just my parents' credit card to purchase the $5,000 worth of photography gear. On several credit applications, she had falsified their signatures. My attorney attested to the fact that this was credit card theft. I informed the fraud departments of the credit card companies about this in an anonymous manner. Notifications of unauthorized accounts and ongoing investigations reached my parents in a matter of days. All of a sudden, their issues were more serious than my nasty behavior on the wedding day. I wasn't finished, though. Do you recall Ethan's claim that they could assist with the mortgage? It turns out that he had been boasting about their plot to buy my property at work. I emailed his HR department a thorough email outlining their attempted property theft and unlawful lock change. His employer, a real estate corporation, did not approve of an employee's attempt to unlawfully take property. He was put on administrative leave while the investigation was conducted. And then I found something better. Not all of Emily's spending had been approved by my parents. They had been claiming her unsuccessful social media endeavor as a home company and deducting her influencer costs from their taxes. I sent all of the paperwork, including evidence that there was no real business, to the IRS. The phone call from my aunt's dad's sister was the actual surprise. "I have something to tell you," she said. "To pay for Emily's wedding, your parents took out a second mortgage on their home. I discovered that you handed them $45,000, despite their claims to the contrary. A forensic accountant was employed by me. The outcomes were startling. In order to fund Emily's lifestyle and guilt-trip me for money, my parents had been lying about their financial situation for years. Some of the disparities in my credit history could be explained by the fact that they had even taken out loans in my name when I was a college student. In addition to demanding the full payback of any improper loans, I had my lawyer write them a letter outlining all we had discovered." Mom's reaction. She complained on Facebook about her ungrateful daughter ruining the family after having a nervous breakdown. The post had a stunning backlash. Before Mom could remove the post, screenshots were making the rounds in our extended family group chats, when a family friend who works at their bank responded, "Is this about the fraudulent loan applications?" Emily attempted to repair the damage by acting like the victim once more, but I was prepared. I uploaded all the proof. The unlawful lock change, the tax fraud paperwork, the falsified credit applications, everything. As her fans watched her meticulously constructed image fall apart, her influencer ambitions came crashing down. Emily and my parents are no longer in contact with Ethan's family. They don't want to be linked to known credit scammers apparently. Their idyllic nuptials have come to represent their demise. My parents are currently being investigated for loan and tax fraud. They were forced to employ their own attorney, who suggested that they cut off all communication with me. Dad's membership in the golf club was suspended while the investigation was underway. It seems that their policies regarding financial impropriety are quite stringent. It feels amazing to experience karmic justice. After witnessing the proof, every flying monkey they threw my way has retreated. Last weekend, my cousin Rachel had a family supper. Emily and my parents weren't invited. After the 20-day notice period ended, I gave all of their possessions from the storage unit to a charitable organization, and I'm having my Bellevue condo professionally refurbished. In contrast to my sister, the property management business has already identified possible renters who comprehend the idea of making rent payments. I feel better than I have ever felt. Sometimes the nicest thing that may happen to you is to get rid of poisonous family members. They lost everything because they believed they could intimidate me into submitting. Their financial security, social stature, and reputation. The nicest part is that all I had to do was reveal the truth. By their own deeds, they ruined themselves. I'll reveal some good developments in my life in the upcoming update. I'm enjoying seeing karma work for the time being. Keep in mind that being family does not need you to burn yourself alive in order to keep others warm. The third update. My last update was 6 months ago. I wanted to see how everything worked out, so I've been holding off on sharing this. The outcomes surpassed my expectations in terms of satisfaction. Let's begin with my folks. They were saddened by the IRS inquiry. Convicted of numerous counts of loan and tax fraud. They were punished severely. Dad was fired as CFO. An executive's record does not reflect well on financial crimes. They had to move into a tiny apartment in a less desirable neighborhood after having to sell their home to pay back taxes and fines. Their social status is utterly ruined. Dad's membership in the golf club was canceled, and Mom was kicked off all of her charity boards. Dad is only able to get a part-time consulting job at the age of 58 because of a fraud probe on his record. Penalties and court fees drain their retirement funds. Mom stays at home most of the time because she is too embarrassed to see her old pals. After only 4 months, Emily and Ethan's marriage fell apart. They began blaming one another after Ethan lost his real estate job since trying to steal property doesn't look well on a realtor's record. When he found out she had applied for credit cards in his name, it was the last straw. He returned to live with his parents after filing for divorce. In order to shield their son from my sister's financial wrongdoings, his family engaged a combative divorce lawyer. Emily currently lives with 2 roommates in a studio apartment and works as a barista, her first real job, after being unable to return to live with our parents. When her fans learned about her fake past, her influencer dreams came to an end. She lost her automobile to foreclosure, and now rides the bus to work. My parents made an effort to get back in touch last month by sending a heartfelt email about mending the family. Their true hope is that I will assist them in regaining their financial stability. In response, my attorney reminded me of the fraudulent loans they had made in my name, and threatened to take legal action if they kept in touch. I'll now give you an update on my life, which has been incredible. I mentioned that I was promoted to the position of youngest CFO in the history of my organization. My strong ethical convictions and unshakable integrity were particularly mentioned by the board in their conclusion. Irony that is delicious. A professional couple who respect limits and pay their rent the Bellevue flat, which has been refurbished. I immediately put the money into my investment portfolio. The finest part, though, comes after. I discovered true love. I took photography classes and joined hiking clubs to broaden my social network while concentrating on my career. I met James, 32 million, a software architect who shares my interests, in this way. He respects my success and freedom, unlike my family. We moved in together 6 months after we first met while taking pictures of eagles at Mount Rainier. My family wasn't anything compared to his. When we first met, his mother gave me a hug and expressed her pride in the way I managed my family's circumstances. She stated it takes guts to confront entitled people, especially if they are relatives. Thanks to my savings and investments, James and I made a cash bid on a stunning modern property with views of the mountains last week. In the meantime, my sister needs a co-signer in order to be eligible for a studio apartment lease. The entire extended family has changed sides. They now turn to me for career and financial assistance. The daughter of my cousin Rachel is working as an intern at my business. I'm helping her develop a morally upright career. I drove by Emily's coffee shop yesterday. She appeared worn out and irate as she stood behind the counter in her U.S. standard issue apron. I didn't enter. Instead, I prepared for another day of managing a profitable division at a Fortune 500 firm by driving my brand new Tesla to my office. I sometimes wonder if they consider how their greed brought them to ruin. Their reputation ruined, mom and dad in their small flat. Emily and her housemates are earning minimum pay. Ethan's career was ruined, and he now lives with his parents. I'm doing well in the interim. My investments are increasing, my business is booming, and I'm creating a lovely life with a wonderful man and his devoted family. My true friends appreciate me for who I am, not for what I can provide. Living spectacularly as your enemies watch their life fall apart, knowing they did it to themselves, is the best kind of retaliation. I want to express my gratitude to everyone who helped me. Stand your ground if you are up against entitled family members. You will obtain something more important, even if you lose your toxic family: genuine happiness and self-respect. Life is going well and will only get better. Thanks for watching and sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next drama-filled episode. My family cut me off for 10 years for becoming a carpenter. Now they've come back asking to hold a reunion at my home. Am I the asshole for refusing? They finally showed up at my new residence after being absent from our family reunions for a decade, during which time they had been cut off. They appeared to have a pale complexion as soon as they entered the room. They were rendered dumbfounded by the next thing I uttered, which was my carefully planned retaliation. The shocking turn of events, however, occurred when I divulged the information that completely demolished their perception of me, as well as all they believed they knew about our history. This is a narrative about betrayal, the strength to rise alone, and the moment when everything came full circle. Check it out, Reddit. In the year 2000, I was sitting on the porch of the house where I had spent my youth, watching my parents and siblings laugh inside the house, despite the fact that I had not been invited to the reunion meal. There was nothing that I had done wrong. No wrongdoing, no treachery, and no drama. Simply put, I did not conform to their conception of success. My younger sister Naomi was the golden child and chose to pursue a career in medicine, while I decided to pursue a different path. My older brother Darren graduated with a degree in law. A carpenter is what I became. The gratification of constructing something with my hands, the scent of sawdust, and the craft itself are all things that I greatly like. To them, however, I was the source of the humiliation that they avoided bringing up during family get-togethers. Small things like birthdays that were ignored, late invitations, and subtle digs about my potential were the beginning of it. One year, they held the yearly family gathering without even informing me that it was going to take place. It wasn't until I saw a photo on Facebook that I found out. Inadvertently, my cousin included me in the group. With a sigh, my mother responded to my inquiry by saying, "We figured you'd be too busy or uncomfortable." I called her to inquire about it. There is discomfort. I was their son, and their brother, yet all of a sudden I felt like I made no sense. I made an effort to disregard it. They might have been correct. It's possible that I was the only one who noticed, but it kept happening. Over the course of several years, photographs were uploaded to the internet. I was removed from group chats, and I was not invited to weddings. I decided to stop calling. They failed to take notice. I relocated to a little town that was 2 hours away, and because I was the black sheep, nobody knew who I was. I put everything I had into my carpentry business, and things began to change gradually as a result of my efforts. It did not happen overnight. I worked as a repairman and a bespoke furniture maker for many years, and I lived a humble existence. Afterwards, one day, a local hotel proprietor gave me a commission to design and construct luxury interiors with distinctive themes. The work I did garnered attention from publications, social media, and even a brief television spot. For a period of 3 years, I was not only stable. All was well with me. After purchasing a piece of land, I proceeded to construct my ideal house from the ground up. Everything from the beams to the panels to the inches was mine, and I had constructed it all by myself. During those years, I never once communicated with my family in any way. It is not out of animosity, but rather pure preservation. On the other hand, I saw the expressions. They started like my business articles and left remarks that were really vague, such as, "Proud of you." As if that could make up for 10 years of being excluded from that. I did not give a response. After that, there was a communication from my brother Darren that came out of nowhere 2 months before Christmas. "Mom wanted to know if you would be able to host the family reunion that will take place this year. Your place is really stunning." I could not believe what I was seeing on the TV. After 10 years of silence, after they severed my connection with them like a sick limb, they indicated that they wanted to utilize my house as the backdrop for their reunion. Simply said, it was a casual request as if nothing had ever occurred, and there was no apology or acknowledgement of the past provided. I failed to provide a response. On the contrary, I devised a more advantageous method. On Christmas Eve, shortly after sundown, I lit up the enormous handcrafted tree that was in my living room, baked the cinnamon pastries that my grandmother used to make, and set the table with flatware that was in excellent condition. I invited one guy, Mr. Hampton, who was the best friend of my grandfather, who passed away. In a time when no one else did, he was the only person who treated me like a member of the family. Over the course of several decades, we sat, ate, and exchanged stories. The environment was calm and serene. After that, there was a knock. As soon as I opened the door, I was greeted by my entire family, including my parents, Darren, Naomi, their spouses, and even my cousins, all of whom were standing there with a pie that had been purchased from the store. The very first person to speak was Naomi. "It's astonishing how beautiful your home is." Brendan blew a whistle. "What? You didn't believe the wood company was that successful, did you?" The eyes of my mother darted from the handcrafted columns to the polished oak floors as she peered around the room. "My dear, you have done a wonderful job for yourself. Is that true? At one point, we were considering the possibility of spending the evening here with each other. Similar to the past." My body did not flinch. I could not remember any of the old times. Keep in mind? It was never extended to me. To clear his throat, my father did so. "Don't let us get caught up in the past. Today is all about the family." I moved to the side and gave them a peek of the warmth of the living room, the fire that was nice and inviting, and the laughter that was coming from within the house between Mr. Hampton and me. I then stated it in a manner that was unobtrusive but unmistakable. "You are not going to do so?" My mom blinked her eyes. What is it? You severed my connection for a period of 10 years. There was neither a phone call nor a personal visit. But when I needed you the most, you turned your back on me. You can now see what I've constructed, and all of a sudden, I'm useful once more. Individuals who arrive at a time that is convenient for them are not welcome tonight. It is for those individuals who have never left. Their complexions became drab. Nothing came out of Darren's mouth as he attempted to speak. With an evident expression of unease, Naomi averted her gaze. A tight nod, almost as if in embarrassment, was all my father did. Then I said, "You did not lose me because of my professional life. I was unable to forgive you because you made me believe that I was never good enough. And at this point, it is too late." When I closed the door, it was not with rage, but with peace. As Mr. Hampton entered the room, he raised his glass. To the family that I had chosen, I smiled and raised my hand to the foundation of something that will last. After I closed the door, there was a silence that did not have the effect of haunting you. He was the kind of person who liberates you. I had the feeling that I had finally expressed all that had been buried deep within me, and it had been years since I heard that feeling. My voice was not heard. I did not go into a commotion. Despite the fact that I just held up a mirror and showed them what they had chosen to overlook, they did not react favorably to the information. My mobile device exploded the following morning. I have missed calls, texts, and even emails. A voicemail was left by my mother, and her voice was shaking as she spoke. She seemed to be trapped between rage and guilt. This is not how a family operates, and I have no idea what you are doing to think you are doing it. In the case of your blood, you do not smash the door. I did not give a response. After that, the campaign of guilt began. Naomi sent me a lengthy text message in which she discussed how family members are prone to making mistakes, and how isolating people is just as hurtful as excluding them. Darren then proceeded to deflect the ball in a traditional manner. In every situation, you took things far too personally. We did not add you because of this reason. It was simpler to do it that way. Simpler for them to do. They were not intending to get back together. Without ever accepting responsibility for their actions, they were attempting to rewrite history. Not me was what they were looking for in the end. And that was the picture. They were now able to attach themselves to one of the successes. Home that was made by hand. What is known locally. They wanted to have the appearance that they had always believed in me, despite the fact that their black sheep had turned golden. However, I was not having any of that. The real controversy began when Naomi went on social media and posted a status that was not very specific. When you try to make apologies with your family, and they turn their back on you, the pain that you feel is indescribable. All of a sudden, friends who were completely unaware of what had truly occurred began to express their sympathy. I did not pay attention to it until my aunt, who had been a constant presence in the background throughout these 10 years, sent me a direct message. I am aware that this must be challenging. The post that Naomi made was something that I noticed, and while I won't make any assumptions about it, I will say that you were absolutely correct in what you said. The impact of the message was greater than I had anticipated. While I was thinking about it, I questioned everything. Did I go too far with this? Had I evolved into the guy I had contempt for? Then, however, I recalled the endless birthdays that I had to celebrate by myself, the notes that I had left for Reed, and the years that I had to watch my family pretend that I did not exist. I did not harbor any resentment. Having just finished carrying weight that was not mine, I was relieved. I chose to concentrate on the life that I had constructed, rather than allowing myself to be drawn back into their drama. My business was doing better than it ever had before. I was scheduled for interviews with local media outlets months in advance, and they began calling me for interviews. It wasn't because I was a showy person, rather, it was because my work gave itself away. To the point where I began mentoring young kids in the community who had been told they were not suitable for college or the business world. I even started mentoring them. A portion of myself was reflected in them. Remaining silent, unnoticed, and resolute. That eventually became my new family. Rather than the one I was born into, I selected the one I was born into. Meanwhile, the family that I had left behind continued to descend into chaos. Once again, Naomi made an update that was passive hostile and focused on entitled siblings. I received a lengthy email from Darren in which he attempted to portray himself as the mediator who consistently made an effort to engage me, and in the end, my mother resorted to mailing a Christmas card that included a note that she had written herself. In the event that you are prepared to rejoin the family, you should return home. On the other hand, I was at home. I was the one who had constructed it by hand. The most significant change occurred one evening when I was awakened by a knock at my door. Rather than coming from them, it was from a person I hadn't seen in more than 15 years. It is Rachel, my cousin. She appeared to be older, exhausted, yet unflinching. She did not provide a pre-rehearsed apology when she arrived. She arrived with the truth. I was present at that time. I am aware of this, she whispered. During all of those years, I witnessed what they did to you, but I chose to remain silent. I ought not to have done that. We sat for a whole day. In her conversation with me, she shared with me how unsettling it was for her when they removed me from the conversation. A time when she attempted to speak up, but she was advised to refrain from doing so. Isolating himself is a decision that he has made. Until she started to doubt it, she had believed it. She continued, I just want you to know that you weren't imagining you were seeing it. A wrong was done to you. In addition, I am sorry that I did not advocate for you. Despite the fact that it did not cure everything, that moment was pivotal. It demonstrated that I was not the only one. That someone had seen the truth even though they were silent about it. Personal development, professional development, and emotional development continued in the months that followed. At that point, I was no longer attempting to prove anything. Merely, I was conducting my life according to my own standards. Then, however, things took a turn that I had not anticipated. I received a letter in the mail on a particular evening in the early spring. Authentic, official, and lawful. When I opened it, I felt a sickening sensation in my stomach. The death of my father had occurred. Not all of a sudden. Despite the fact that he had been sick for some time, no one had bothered to inform me about it. It was not my family that wrote the letter. It was someone from his legal team. It was written with my name on it because he had left something for me. Rather than money or land, it is a notebook. My father's handwriting was also present within. Brittle and faded, but unmistakably from his hand. The information that I discovered in those pages not only altered everything that I had previously believed to be true about our relationship, but it also laid the groundwork for the conclusion of this tale. Before I finally opened the journal, I had been holding it in my hands for close to an hour. Over the course of time, it had been weathered, bound in leather, and marked. Following the name of my father, which was scrolled over the inner cover, there was a single date written underneath it. The month of October 2008 was the year that everything started to go apart. While I was flipping through the pages, it became quite evident that this was not merely a diary. There was a confession made. On each and every page he detailed the fractures that existed inside our family. The need to preserve an image, the successful family, the accomplished children, and the illusion of unity, were all topics that he documented in his writing. It was not out of anger that Dad worried, but rather out of fear, when I decided to pursue a career in carpentry, rather than college. When it came to defending you, I was hopeless. According to one of the entries, I thought that if I ignored it and pushed you aside, you would come back around. I made a mistake. At each and every instance in which I excluded you, I broke something within me. His statements conveyed a sense of anguish, feelings of regret, but also timidity. The remorse he felt for his decision to choose silence over love and image over integrity was something he carried with him until his grave. However, the last entry affected the most people. Since you are reading this, it indicates that I have left. Also, I am aware that I have no authority to request anything from you. You, however, are deserving of being heard, which is why I left this for you. You are entitled to better. In addition, you have the right to decide what comes next. My mind kept going back to that line for several days. I did not attend the funeral service. Naomi made it a point to share glitzy black and white photographs of the event on social media, even though she was crying while wearing fancy sunglasses. The sad expression on Darren's face as he stands at the podium. This was performance art, and I had no interest in participating in it. However, I did come to a conclusion. After a week had passed, I had a letter that was handwritten and completely sealed delivered to my mother's residence. Within it, I include a single copy of the last entry that my father made in his journal. Just the truth, which he had concealed for almost a decade, without any criticism or insults. I have included one of my own sentences underneath it. I was obliterated by you for a decade. I want to remind you that I was never truly absent. To put it simply, you weren't looking long enough. And that ought to have been the conclusion. But there aren't many clear exits through life. After a period of 2 months, Naomi arrived at my training facility. There is no call, no warning. It was as if she had not blocked me for a decade when she suddenly strolled in. In a low voice, she stated, "I read it." I arose from the chair I was sitting in and looked around. I had no idea that he had an attitude like that. After putting the tool down, I came to my feet. "Has it caused a shift in how you feel?" She was hesitant. Furthermore, that quiet was more convincing than anything else. "This is not a place where I request forgiveness." In addition, she stated, "I came here because I believe he wanted us to stop acting like we were not. It is no longer something I wish to do. While you have every reason to despise me, I am not here to rewrite anything that you have written." Simply said, "I want to be honest with you." That is exactly what she did. I was told of the jealousy, and how I appeared to be free when others felt as though they were being confined by expectations. My absence caused them to feel guilty, and as a result, they chose to cover it up by dismissing me. The manner in which my success transformed me into a danger rather than a brother. It was all admitted by her. For the very first time, it seemed to be happening. I did not give her a hug. I did not experience a coma. Simply put, I listened. And when she had finished, I simply responded by saying, "I appreciate the honesty, but it does not mean that the past is history. The only thing that implies is that we can stop lying about it." She gave a slight nod. I think that to be sufficient. Despite the fact that we did not develop a close relationship after that, we did become honest. Which was more than I had ever anticipated. Regarding Darren, he never made another attempt to get in touch with me, not even after he found out about the journal. As he had done in the past, he maintained his silence, allowing it to serve as a shield for his pride. I did not attempt to get closure from him. Some individuals are only able to comprehend the concept of loss when they have nothing left to hold on to. I had already moved on, but the true moment of closure arrived on the Christmas of the following year. This time, my home was packed with people who were not members of my biological family, but rather folks who had become a part of my inner circle. My cousin Rachel, Mr. Hampton, the young apprentices I coached, and the neighbors who had become like family were all members of my family. During the quiet moments, I stood by the fire and stared at the room that I'd constructed with my own hands. We laughed, we ate, and we told stories. Also, we shared stories. In spite of the fact that I didn't have to say it out loud, I was having the same notion. It wasn't me who was the bad apple. Just now, I was the first person to leave the herd and go away. I discovered something that was superior to acceptance as a result of my actions. My mind was at ease. After everything was said and done, I did not require their approval, their apology, or their acceptance. I was surrounded by individuals who got me for who I truly was, and I constructed my own life from the ground up. Moreover, when the moment came, I did not have to yell out about it. I merely went around and showed them what they had decided to discard. What I did was exactly my retribution, and it was plenty. Make sure to give this tale a like, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications if it has the ability to move you. There are more compelling true life experiences like this one. Keep tough and keep strong until we meet again. Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. I quietly bought my brother's company and let Grandma reveal the truth at Easter dinner. It wasn't for revenge, it was to end the silence. Easter dinner at my folks' has always happened. Same food, stories, overcooked ham, and awful tension that hangs to the walls like baked pineapple and boiling vegetables. Ben, my older brother by 3 years and 100 recognized accomplishments, takes his place at the head of the table like a throne every year. Dad always cut the turkey on that end, so he didn't get that spot. Ben always sat next to him, soaking in approbation like sunlight in the family plant. The same happened this year. Except it was. I returned to town after finalizing a deal that gets you Googled. Of course, quietly. Few LinkedIn lines, no interviews, no press photos, and a Friday 400 p.m. company-wide email. That suits me. I operate under the radar for results. Ben acts like a library foghorn. Noisy, relentless, and determined the world must hear him and his words. So, mashed potatoes were passed. Dad had 2 scotches. And Ben started his latest diet rant about how the tech sector is not for the weak. Something about hustle culture, tensioning deliverables, and overestimated emotional intelligence. I wasn't listening initially. My main concern was cutting the dry turkey breast without it collapsing into sawdust. And then he said it. He said, leaning back like a king in court, that not everyone can succeed in IT. He looked around the table for applause or a nod from Dad. Indeed, Dad gave it to me. Only employs that hushed grunt of agreement when Ben talks. The sound that meant my boy always aimed high. I didn't blink or react, simply sipped red wine while my brain processed that. Grandma Jean looked at me. She hadn't spoken, but her eyes were narrowed, her warning sign. Another boasting round followed. Ben boasted about firing a third of his workforce last month, like he was a strong leader. He termed it right-sized. I called it. He laughed. He said I wouldn't comprehend because I wasn't in the trenches. Mom was moving in her seat to defuse the situation before it became a weekend-long passive-aggressive minefield. When she questioned how the company was going, he spat out numbers, revenue predictions, Q1 losses, and investor pressure. All of it was amazing unless you understood it. Which I did. I kept quiet not because I was frightened to speak, but to see how far he'd dig his own hole before someone gave him a lantern. Grandma was that someone. Grandma Jean is 90, but she can pay her own taxes, roast a chicken, and play whack-a-mole with egos. She constantly thinks long-term in our family. Mother, watcher, who recalls everything and forgets nothing. She waited until Ben breathed between Q4 pivot strategy and chain of command management. She turned to me, unwilling to melt her innocence and butter in her mouth, and uttered the question that would upend the table dynamic. Is that why your company bought Ethan? You could have heard a pin drop. Not simply a battery, dust particle, breath, or heartbeat. Ben froze. Fork near mouth. Dad stopped chewing mid-bite, which rarely happens until someone dies or the electricity goes out. Mom stared at her wine glass as it held the universe's secrets. And I? I kept eating my roll like nothing happened, like she hadn't lit a match in a propane-filled room. Ben blinks. Once or twice, then exclaimed too loudly and fakely. The voice rose half a tone higher than normal to say it wasn't like that. Merger. Strategic alliance of shared interests. Grandma frowned. She stated the only way grandmas can, when they know you're full but want to watch you squirm longer. I said nothing. Not yet. You don't waste a first shot when the truth is loaded. You want impact. Ben didn't know, and no one at that table saved me, and Grandma knew that I'd watched his company go downhill for 8 months. I acted when the board was desperate, layoffs hit, and morale was low. He was clean, legal, efficient, and on my org chart. Despite not wanting revenge, it tasted like it. An Easter meal was served. My brother was red-faced, my parents astonished, and my grandmother smiled like a cat who knocked a vase down and challenged you to chastise her. That moment has no sequel, just silent. Pure pain, lovely quiet. The truth sometimes rings loudest in the room no one saw coming. I knew there was more when I grabbed the gravy. The beautiful mirror my brother had erected around himself had its first break. I would let it fall apart with the nicest grin, as Grandma taught me. Have you noticed how certain families don't hide their favorites? It wasn't subtle for us. Ben was the golden child from the moment he was born, with full hair and a smug cry like he owned the place. I arrived 3 years later, quieter, squishier, and appearing more like an afterthought than a plan. Mom always said I was her surprise. However, throughout the years, I felt like the consolation prize for parents too fatigued to focus on a second child. Ben was applauded, got the checklists. He had everything before I knew I wanted it as a kid. First bike, sparkling red, hand-picked from town's best store. When I could ride, I got his old one, spray-painted blue with wonky wheels. The first car was a second-hand but clean Civic with a stereo that annoyed the neighbors. Mine? Mom's old Taurus reeked of foot and misery. They termed his ambition. It was luck or background noise when I did well. I wasn't mad, not then. Anger needs heat. So I had frigid resolve, a slow burn, and a quiet inventory I started keeping in my thoughts. Ben was boisterous, charismatic, and famous. Homecoming court, varsity, soccer, dean's list. Every family portrait showed him front and center, chest out like he created confidence. I was usually blinking or holding someone else's jacket near the frame's edge. Ben was touted as destined. Maybe politics, business, anything bright and significant. In the 90s, being quiet, smart, and into computers meant we didn't know what he was doing, but at least he wasn't doing drugs. Nothing was said about it in college. With confidence and student loans, Ben got into MIT early. The whole family barbecued like he was drafted by NASA. I didn't receive a card at community college 3 towns away. It didn't bother me. I realized early on I'd never win by playing his game, and trying to outshine Ben at his parade would get me squashed. Instead, I played another game. Longer deadlines, fewer applause, higher stakes. Then studied in impressive-sounding computer science with a minor in business and interned at well-known companies in the summers. I freelanced under a bogus firm name because clients wouldn't take me seriously. I developed websites, maintained networks, and coded like my future depended on it. Honestly, it did. I remember calling him the summer after his junior year for aid with a problem. Brother to brother, he might throw me a bone. He laughed hard, like I'd asked him to clean my toilet or do my taxes. Advised me to Google it like everyone else. I never forgot. It stung, but it revealed his true nature beneath the polish. It told me to never ask him again. Then I got serious. I quit community college because I realized I didn't need a degree to achieve what I was building. Self-taught the rest. By messing up and starting over, I learned more than I can count. I learned to develop in 3 languages, launched little tools and apps, flipped a few ventures, and built a company no one had heard of, but produced real money. I silently built my own while Ben meticulously calculated how to impress the next management up the line. Over the years, we drifted like 2 ships in different currents. He wore expensive outfits to family functions, promoting his company's latest product, and bragging about bonuses and conferences. I arrived in jeans, generally late, spoke little, and left early. I enjoyed that no one knew what I did. They thought I was coasting, doing freelance work or living in a basement. Let them. I didn't require approval. I needed time. I'd learned to invest time better than them, thankfully. As Ben's companies began to fail, I saw it first. I tracked the trends, layoffs, terrible hires, and bloated structure. I observed their burn rate rise. I made some calls when the board started talking about restructuring. My organization had finances, leverage, and most importantly, no emotional baggage. I didn't target Ben. I targeted waste, opportunity, and mismanagement. I appreciated his inclusion in the bundle as a cosmic joke. I sat alone in my office with the signed acquisition contract the night before Easter supper. The ink hardly dried. Having read it a dozen times, it still feels unreal. This document places my older brother's profession, ego, and story under my name. That wasn't revenge. Not even victory. Another, quieter thing, like scratching a 30-year-old itch. Not perfect, but necessary. I could have told my parents then. Could have contacted Ben to warn him and save face. I didn't because some realities aren't gentle. Some realities need cautious disclosure, especially with the whole friggin' family watching. Especially when your 90-year-old grandma, who never doubted you and has sharper eyes than investors, understands what you've done before you say a thing. The room felt cold, like someone had neglected to close a freezer door. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The hush seemed uneasy. It was shaped like thick smoke curling between each word spoken, wrapping over every fork, napkin, and untouched deviled egg on that long oak table. My brother Ben sat there, jaw slightly open, blinking like a shotgun hit him between the eyes. For the first time in years, he had nothing to say. After Grandma burnt him in front of everyone, you couldn't respond with a joke or grin. You can't joke about your baby brother owning the company you left. Not even Ben, master of the arrogant shrug and corporate language, could polish that turd. Since I knew he was about to delve deeper, I took a slow sip of my wine to let it linger and give him space to do so. Mom, bless her endless optimism, leaped in like a person who sees a car crash coming but yet thinks they can stop it with a soothing voice and a shoulder touch. She mentioned that firms merge often, that it's business, and that we shouldn't talk shop over dinner. Her voice was lovely, but her eyes were begging, darting between us like she could make this moment less humiliating for her firstborn. Dad didn't say a word, which was expected. Except for losing football games or making mistakes at work, he rarely showed emotion. He kept biting his overdone ham like rubber, trying to wear it down with jaw muscle. But I saw it in his shoulders, how they stiffened up, and how he grasped his fork too hard. He was dissatisfied while listening. Ben finally found his voice, but it cracked. Not what you think, he answered, attempting to maintain his haughty attitude. I don't work for him anymore. A merger. 2 equal firms merging. Standard strategy. I didn't glance at him. cut my cold potatoes into a passive-aggressive insult-like shape and let him keep going. He said, "We're consolidating leadership," sounding like a news release. Transitional phase. Things don't change overnight. See him lie to himself in real time? Funny. Perhaps if he repeated it enough times, the sinking ship he was guiding would suddenly return to course because he refused to believe it had hit an iceberg. Then he turned to me like he remembered me in the room. He added, cocking his head in the way that usually got him out of trouble, "You'd be confused. You freelance more, right?" That phrase freelancer lingered there like a disease or nasty habit I couldn't break. He said it softly, but with that sharpness he saved for when he wanted to cut me in front of others without looking like the aggressor. It was then I said it. I told him. My voice calmed the surgeon who signed your severance package last week. The punch didn't feel real. It felt like turning on a light. There was tension in the room. Next, I held a mirror up to him to show him what we'd known for years. He blinked again, looked at me like I was speaking another language. Like they'd changed our lives' rules without him knowing. They did because I wasn't letting him talk over me for the first time. I didn't dodge or ignore his jabs. I let it be raw and basic. No need for fireworks. Dad stood up then. He stood slowly, softly, pushed his chair back like it weighed more than it should, and left the room without saying anything. Silence, footsteps, no spectacular retreat or angry glance. That was worse because if he'd yelled, it would have been expected. As in a novel, this quiet feels definitive, like closing a door you know won't open again. Ben stared after him, mouth twitching like he wanted to say something but couldn't. Mom reached for his hand, but he pulled away, staring at the corridor where Dad had vanished. Grandma chewed her carrots slowly, as if she'd seen it all before and wasn't startled. I stayed put. I didn't brag. I didn't need to, since some triumphs aren't loud. Cheers and applause are absent. Silence settles in your chest and makes it hard to breathe, not from sadness, but from the weight of truth, finally settled in. As I looked around the table at the folks who used to perceive me as the shadow of the man opposite from me, I realized something I hadn't dared accept until then. No more proof was needed. No to him, Dad, or them. Won already. No master plan or vendetta I'd been carrying for 20 years started it. No. It begins quietly and contemplatively, like most of my important things. My lean-focused company has grown steadily for 5 years. No investors hounding us, no bloated leadership team, just a few smart people who cared about it working. We weren't flashy. We didn't attend every conference in TechCrunch or Patagonia vests. We produced products that worked and made money month after month without approval. While high management conducted yoga retreats and published cryptic LinkedIn statements about resilience, Ben's company earned publicity for announcing things it hadn't created, having launch parties for beta products, and hemorrhaging personnel. I'd been watching them slowly break apart from afar for almost a year, not because I hated them, but because I noticed inefficiencies. Ben's company, once a darling, was a textbook example of how arrogance and overspending can wreck something excellent. During coffee, a friend casually said that they might be seeking a partner, like the weather. "You know they're bleeding talent," he said, tapping his mug. "Wouldn't surprise me if they started shopping around." I smiled and nodded, but my brain had already started crunching numbers, pulling threads, and laying out a map in the quiet way it always does when I smell blood in the water. Because timing is everything, especially in this business, I waited. 3 months later, a contact at a shared venture capital firm emailed me to feel me out. Informal discussion about potential synergies. Translation: they're desperate and you look stable. I played it cool, even though I knew what I wanted. I wasn't interested in bailing them out. But I was interested in their engineering talent, key patents, and customer base that overlapped with ours in all the right ways. I told them we could talk, but quietly. No leaks, no hype, just numbers and structure. Negotiations were slow. They're never when you're dealing with egos the size of small planets. But what struck me from the start was how nobody mentioned Ben. He wasn't on the deck, on the call, or even in the background, which told me everything I needed to know about his situation. They had written him off, boxed him in, and were trying to clean up the mess without saying failure. I was in my office late on a Thursday, when the air felt thick with momentum, and decisions felt like physical objects you could hold in your hand. The document arrived in a password-protected folder with a generic subject line, just another piece of paper in a stack. When I opened it, there it was. Ben Keller, Director of Product Development, reporting directly to me. I stared at that box for a long time, not smiling, not gloating, just still. It was surreal. I hadn't seen his name in a context where I had authority over it since we were kids, when I had to manage the score sheets for our backyard basketball games because I couldn't play without them. I kept score again. But this time the game wasn't pretend and the points were real. I didn't tell anyone. Not my girlfriend, my co-founder, not even Grandma. I let it sit in my chest like a stone dropped in a lake. Ripples spreading quietly outward. Gloating implies you need the wind to validate yourself. I wasn't prepared for Easter. I should have been. I should have seen it coming when Grandma asked what I'd been working on lately and I gave her a vague answer about acquisitions. She saw through it instantly as she always did, but I didn't think she'd drop the bomb at dinner. I thought she'd pull me aside in the kitchen, give me a knowing look, maybe sarcastic, and say, "So I guess you're the boss now." But she said it out loud, with that razor-sharp calm that chilled the room like a family drama with terrible lighting and even worse secrets. After the tension, silence, and Ben's attempt to spin it, which I answered with a single sentence, he waited until dessert was cleared to corner me, pulled me aside with a firm hand on my arm to make a point, and led me out onto the back deck like we were having a heart-to-heart instead of a showdown. "What the hell?" he snarled, his voice harsh and low and full of something that wasn't quite anger but damn close to panic. "You couldn't just let it go." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw it for the first time. He wasn't mad that I beat him. He was scared because I wasn't playing the game anymore. I'd rewritten the rules and he didn't even know what page we were on. Worse, he still thought it was salvageable. He thought he could talk his way out. He didn't get that it was already done, final, signed, and filed. So I said nothing and looked out at the yard where we used to play catch, where he threw too hard on purpose, and I pretended it didn't. The night air had that brittle chill you only get in early spring, like winter hadn't fully let go yet, and neither had we. The back porch creaked under our feet like old wood does when it's trying to warn you that what's coming can't be undone. His face had lost that calm, smug control he wore like a badge of honor. Now it was raw, flushed, jaw tight like he was chewing on glass, but couldn't spit it out. "You planned this," he said. No question, no real charge. More like a desperate grasp for a less pitiful outcome. "Everything was planned by you. You've been waiting for me to fall so you may play hero, or villain. Not even sure which one you think you are anymore." I delayed responding. I leaned against the rail and watched the backyard, the same plot of grass where we used to play till someone wept. I generally get it from him pressing too hard and calling it a joke. The same ground where we buried a time capsule convinced us we'd be legends by now. Ben approached, his voice rising, his fingers twitching as he struggled to control his wrath. "You always hated me for being better," he added, fiery. "Smarter, faster, more driven. You never had the guts to play at my level, so you waited till I slipped and kicked me. Noble Ethan." I turned slowly, calmly, and met his eyes with clarity, not rage, pain, or pride, just the stillness of someone who didn't need his approval anymore. "You never outshone me," I said. "Don't raise my voice, don't rush my words." That struck like a truth so simple it couldn't be argued with. Ben flinched barely, and I saw the shift. His eyes narrowed, his body coiled, and he stepped forward and grabbed a fistful of my shirt in one fluid, reflexive motion. Old habits die hard. He'd done that same move 100 times when we were kids on the field, in the hallway, in the garage, when I touched his stuff. The alpha act, the chest puffing that always got him what he wanted because no one called him on it. Not teachers, not our parents, and not me until now. But I didn't flinch this time. I stood there still as stone, letting him feel the difference. "Ben," I said quietly, my voice a scalpel, "and I don't work for you." For a second, he stood there, knuckles white, face inches from mine. Then he let go slowly, fingers trembling like he wanted to hit something but knew it wouldn't help. He took a step back and laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that cracked under the weight of everything he didn't want to admit. "You think this makes you a better man?" he asked shakily. "You think buying my firm makes you valuable?" "I never needed to buy your company to be worth something," I replied, turning back to the yard. "But you had to buy it to prove that." The kitchen window light was on behind us. Grandma stood there, one hand on the counter, the other stirring something she probably didn't plan to serve, but her eyes were sharp as ever, watching us like the final judge in a courtroom we hadn't realized we'd entered. She smiled, just a faint curve at the corner of her mouth, Ben didn't see her. Or maybe he did, but he couldn't face what she meant to smile. He took another step back, shook his head and said, "You're not who I was." I didn't reply because what was there to say? He was right. I wasn't. I had spent too many years pretending that silence meant weakness, humility meant submission, and success wasn't real unless someone else confirmed it. But now, standing on the back porch with his fingers still warm from trying to drag me back into that old dynamic, I knew better. I had left that version of myself behind, and maybe that's why he was so angry. For the first time in his life he couldn't reach me, rattle me or win. I didn't need to say anything else. The house was mostly settled by then. After a storm, it is always quiet, but tense and loaded. Like the walls were still processing what they'd heard and didn't know how to hold it all. The dishes were stacked in the sink, the table was cleared without ceremony, and the family had scattered to different corners of the house like survivors drifting from a shipwreck. Mom was upstairs folding laundry that didn't need folding. Ben was locked in the downstairs guest room pretending to check emails, and Dad had disappeared into the garage where he concentrated to retreat when things cracked enough to show feelings he didn't want to name. And me. I stood alone in the kitchen with the dim light casting long shadows on the linoleum floor, trying to remember how a holiday had become a battleground. Grandma entered without saying a word. Clicking like she always did, slow but steady, slippers brushing the tile, nightgown rustling softly, eyes clear and focused despite the hour. She moved to the stove, checked a pot she'd long since turned off, and stirred it once with a wooden spoon like the act helped her think. I was leaning against the counter, arms folded, and we just existed in that space together, saying nothing but speaking volumes. Then she turned to me with that familiar gaze as sharp as at dinner, and nodded toward the den's back hallway. "Come on," she said, not as a request, but as assurance. I followed her down the hall, past the creaky floorboard near the bathroom, into the small wood-paneled room where she kept her little treasures for decades. Old books, faded photos, flea market knickknacks she claimed were antiques, and the constant smell of lemon polish and lavender. She sat slowly in her old recliner, motioned for me to take the chair across from her, and reached into the side table drawer without looking. Her hand came out with something wrapped in a worn cloth, something she'd clearly kept hidden for a long time. She gently unwrapped it, and it was Grandpa's watch. It was a simple piece, not flashy or expensive, but it had weight. Not just physical weight, though it was solid in your pawn, heavier than it looked, but history, expectations, and all the silent glances and unspoken lessons Grandpa used to give us when he was alive. Everyone in the family assumed it would go to Ben. The firstborn, the man of action. The one who talks about legacy and honor and continuing the family name like we're royalty instead of middle-class Indianans who paid bills on time and kept Christmas decorations in the attic. She gave it to me. She placed it in my open hand like she was transferring a responsibility, rather than a possession. "Your grandfather told me to give it to the one who reminded him most of himself. Quiet, unpraised and determined." I stared at the watch. The way the scratched glass caught the light, the leather band had molded to Grandpa's wrist and was ready to take on mine. I didn't say anything because I had 1,000 questions, but because I knew this was a time for receiving. "He needs attention," she said after a beat. "Eyes not leaving mine. Always did since he was a boy. He's not bad, just hollow in ways he doesn't understand. But you never needed the applause. You just needed time." Something caught in my throat then. Not a sob, not a tear. Just something heavy and unfinished that had been stuck there since I was maybe 10 years old watching my brother get handed things with open arms while I got instructions and told the door crept behind us. And we turned to see Dad. Silent as always, holding a mug of coffee that had probably gone cold. His eyes dropped to the watch in my hand, and he had no expression, just the stonewall face he always wore when emotion tried to show. But then something changed. Just barely. A tightening around the eyes. A softening of the jaw. Not approval, not forgiveness. Just recognition, acknowledgement, maybe even a whisper of regret. He didn't speak. Just nodded once and turned away. Footsteps echoing down the hall with the weight of a man who wishes he'd seen things sooner. Maybe wished he'd asked different questions, looked in different directions. Or maybe that was just me projecting. Either way, his silence said more than words. I looked at Grandma again. She was watching him disappear, then turned to me, eyes gleaming slightly. "Some things can't be bought," she said slowly and confidently. "But some people, oh, they're for sale, all right." She leaned back in her chair, closed her eyes, and exhaled like a woman who had just finished the last chapter of a story only she understood. I sat there with that watch in my hand, feeling every moment that had led to this one. Not angry, not triumphant, just still. And that was enough. Monday mornings in tech are usually a mix of chaos and caffeine. Unread emails scream from every tab. Slack messages pile up faster than your thoughts can organize, and calendar invites feel like handcuffs. However, this Monday was quiet in a way that felt orchestrated, like the moment before a string quartet started playing in a hushed theater. When I entered the office, there was no tension, no whispering rumors in the break room, no sudden movements, just a strange calmness, like the building knew something had been removed and was adjusted to the new weight. Ben's name was gone from the system by 9:30. No internal memo, no all-hands meeting, no we wish him well on his journey. Just empty corporate platitude. His profile was wiped from the org chart, his desk was cleared, and his access badge was deactivated in the admin log. It was the quietest resignation I'd ever seen. It feels heavier than if he had gone out with a bang, a tantrum, or a smug LinkedIn essay about pivoting into new opportunities. By noon, my inbox was full of emails from current and former employees who had waited for this moment like the weather. The messages weren't long and didn't need to be. Just a steady stream of thank you took long enough, and he was a nightmare to work for. A few were more personal. One engineer said Ben had taken credit for his work 3 quarters in a row. Another described being screamed at during a Zoom call for asking about project timelines. A woman from HR wrote that she had reported his behavior to higher-ups and was told to document more thoroughly next time, as his toxicity needed a spreadsheet to be acknowledged. As I read each word, line, and pixelated gratitude, something strange and unfamiliar began to stir in me. It wasn't pride or vindication but a quieter sense of responsibility. Maybe the weight of knowing that when you remove a tyrant, you have to rebuild the wreckage. That afternoon my phone buzzed with Mom. She never called during work hours unless it was urgent or emotional, usually both. I stared at the screen, wondering if she knew, how she knew, and what she wanted to say that couldn't wait until the next family gathering where she could smooth over the cracks with casseroles and nervous smiles. On the 4th ring, she was crying. Not sobbing or hysterical, just that soft, breathy kind of crying where every word sounds like it's pushing through a storm. She asked why I hadn't told her, how long I'd known, and what happened to the little boys who used to play with Legos on the living room floor, building castles, robots, and towers out of plastic and dreams and sibling rivalry. Why didn't you speak up? She asked, voice trembling. And the answer came so easily, I didn't even pause. Because I wanted a brother, I said. Not a rival. She didn't respond at first. Just breathed. Let the silence carry all the things neither of us could name. I think deep down she knew not about the company or the deal or the power shift, but about the fracture, the long, slow drift between us that had started years ago and had only grown wider with every up-out month. Perhaps she cried because I waited so long to stop pretending everything was fine. After the call, I sat in my office alone, lights dimmed, door closed, the kind of stillness that only comes after emotional fallout. I leaned back in my chair, hands steepled beneath my chin, thinking not about the company, staff, or budget meetings ahead. I wondered if Ben, the boy with the scraped knees and the crooked grin who laughed too loud and threw baseballs too hard, would ever forgive me or himself. When I got home that evening, the sky was already twilight. I kicked off my shoes, loosened my collar, and dropped my bag by the door. On the kitchen counter was an envelope. It was heavy, not physically, but in a way that feels old and waiting. No name on the front. No return address. I stared at it for longer than I should have, the edges soft under my fingers, the paper thick and folded with care. I don't know why. Maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe I didn't want to know what was inside because not knowing still held possibilities. Words of apology, anger, and a final declaration from a man who had never been big on words. I put it in my desk drawer, unopened, and that was enough for now. Thanksgiving came around like it always does, just cold enough to make your breath visible in the morning, and sentimental enough to bring families back together, ready or not. The leaves were mostly gone, scattered across the lawn like forgotten promises, and the house felt smaller than I remembered. Maybe because fewer voices were filling it. Or maybe because silence makes the walls feel closer. Either way, the air was different this time, not just from the season, but from the absence that sat at the table like a ghost in a folding chair. Ben wasn't there. His name wasn't directly mentioned, not in a way that opened the door to a real conversation, but he was everywhere in the gaps. The empty seat, the untouched place setting that Mom laid out anyway like muscle memory, had overridden common sense. Dad kept glancing at it without realizing it. It was more like grief, but without the clarity of death to make sense of it. A slow mourning for something that had cracked but never quite broken, still sharp enough to bleed but not broken enough to bury. Mom was distant, like someone caught between traditions she didn't want to lose and a reality she couldn't accept. She smiled when she had to, refilled glasses too often, and kept asking everyone if they were warm enough, like it was a question that might fix something if asked again. I caught her looking at me more than once, not with blame, but with that soft, searching gaze only mothers have, the kind that scans your face like it might reveal the child she used to know buried beneath whatever you'd grown. Dad nodded at me when I walked in, a gesture so small and restrained it might have gone unnoticed if I hadn't been waiting for anything more. He didn't speak to me until I was halfway through my second helping of mashed potatoes, and even then, it was just a weather comment, used as bait. Grandma was there, of course, in her usual chair by the window, watching the wind play with the trees and the neighborhood kids tossing footballs between driveways. She looked smaller than she did at Easter, like time had finally started pressing on her shoulder, but her eyes were still sharp, still watching, still cataloging everything in that quiet, knowing way she had. When we met, she smiled gently, not wide or smug, just satisfied that a long game had finally fallen. I went to the den, the old wood-paneled room that still smelled like her perfume, dust, and old books. I sat at her desk, the same place I'd sat months earlier when she gave me Grandpa's watch. This time, I pulled out the envelope that had been waiting patiently in my desk drawer since Dad left it for me. I hadn't opened it because unopened things have potential. Hope, regret, praise, disappointment. Until you read the words. But that night, with the house humming softly and a half-healed family pressing against the windows like cold air, I opened it. There was only one line. You were always enough. I didn't know how to say it. I read it once, then again, and again, and then I sat back in the chair, stinging like I hadn't felt in years, not since I was a kid, and scraping my knee so hard the blood pulled in my sock. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at him, Ben, or the years I'd spent chasing a version of success I thought I needed to prove something. The tears came slowly, not dramatic, just real. Perhaps I needed to prove it to realize I didn't. When I rejoined the others, the house was dimmer, quieter, full of leftover smells, half-drunk wine, and half-heard laughter. I watched Mom hug my cousin goodbye like she might break if she let go too fast. Grandma looked at me one last time before I left and said, "Good. Now keep going." As I stepped outside into the cool night air, I realized the real inheritance wasn't the watch, letter, or nod from my father. It was knowing that I had survived the story they wrote for me and rewritten it without permission. Maybe I won. Maybe I lost something bigger trying to prove I didn't need to. But some dinners change everything, and some silences say more than applause. Would you have spoken up at dinner, or let him believe the lie? Thanks for watching and being part of the drama. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a wild news story. My husband once let his family humiliate and discard me. 7 years later, I returned under a different name and bought their entire company. My husband's family always considered me unworthy. He consented and pulled away. 7 years later, we met at a corporate gala. I wasn't recognized. I grinned and gave him an unexpected contract. Our corporation bought his family's business. Quiet ensued. Jason's coffee mug fell over when I slammed the folder on our kitchen counter, spilling black liquid on his white shirt. The hell is this? My voice shaking, finger pointing at the proof. My background checks me like a criminal. Jason's face went white when he saw his mother's handwriting on the Eva background manila folder. Private detectives his family hired revealed everything. My parents' low income, school loans, and images of my small childhood home. Each page included Lena's exquisite calligraphy. Unsuitable. Common. Unfined. Let me explain, Claire. Jason grabbed my hand, but I retreated. Betrayal burns like new. Was this known before you proposed? Though tears threatened, I refused to satisfy them. My first look behind the Wright family facade. I didn't realize it was just the start. I met Nick at a charity function where I coordinated events. He was kind and interested in my sustainable business ideas. 6 months later, he proposed, and I thought I'd met my equal. My diamond ring blinded me to the warning flags. His small hesitancy while introducing me to his mother, his father's appraising eyes, and the whisper discussions that halted when I entered the rooms. Jason's mother, Vivian, called me about the engagement party 3 weeks before finding the folder. Nothing spectacular, she promised with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, just family and close friends. Wright Estate included 5 acres of beautiful lawns and gardens. Valets in pristine uniforms parked visitors' fancy automobiles, while wait servants carried champagne and d'oeuvres. For Vivian, this meant nothing fancy. Under crystal chandeliers, 200 Boston elite mingle. Jason left within minutes of our arrival, taken by his father to meet an old governor acquaintance. I was alone with my pocketbook as a protection, when an older server approached. "Miss Thompson, Mrs. Wright requested I show you to your dinner seat." He led me through a swinging door from the great dining room, where tables were being set with beautiful china and silver, to a smaller area where staff were preparing trays. "There must be some mistake," I replied, peering at the solitary place setting between multiple napkins and water images. The server's eyes showed pity. The main room laughed, humiliating me. "Mrs. Wright was very specific. She said you'd be more comfortable here, observing how proper service is conducted." Jason discovered me still immobilized with astonishment 20 minutes later. "Claire, why are you back here?" Everyone sits. He seemed confused, so I wondered if he didn't realize what his mother had done, or if he was just a better actress. Vivian smiled during his lead to the main table. "Unfortunately, the seating chart was misinterpreted. You might like seeing how things work behind the scenes, Claire. You're an event planner. Therefore the emphasis lets everyone understand. Not a guest." I was staff who stumbled into their world. That night I questioned Jason about his mother's actions. In frustration he cried, raking his hair. With me, not his family. Old-fashioned Claire from mom. She just needs time to acclimate. She expected me to marry Elle or Gia. Our lifelong friends. People with the proper lineage? I found the word bitter. His silence was confirmed. The pattern persisted. Mark, Jason's father and Wright Delicacies CEO, called me to his office one afternoon. Gourmet cuisine sold in high-end stores nationwide was made by the family business for generations. A refurbished downtown structure with elegant metal and mahogany housed the headquarters. I arrived in a new suit, hoping for an olive branch. Maybe Thomas finally realized my business degree could help the family business. "Claire." He nodded without standing or shaking hands. "Jason said you've been job hunting since graduation. I might feel hope." Officer. I focused on marketing and product development. Thomas treated me like a somewhat fascinating specimen under a microscope. "A mailroom opening exists. It will teach you the basics of company operations where you belong." We were separated by the deliberate insult. "My degree is in business," I whispered. He replied with Westfield State honors, showing his scorn. "A privilege, Claire. No matter where they started, most people will jump at the chance to enter here." As I reached our bedroom door that night, I heard Jason on the phone. "Dad, you can't really offer her the mailroom." His quiet, defensive voice gave me hope before he continued. "Yes, she needs to earn her place." But I held my breath, pressing closer to the door. "You're right," Jason answered after a lengthy silence. "She can improve. She may attend workplace events with guidance. I know my undertaking, treating me like a burden or project." I traced the engagement ring, which now feels like a collar instead of affection. I kept telling myself Jason would stand up to them, and that he loved me for who I was, not what they wanted. The ultimate humiliation arrived in a silver box a week before our wedding. Inside was an Elizabeth Morrison finishing school certificate. The 12-week executive spouse program covers table manners and French conversation. Vivian wrote, "Maybe this will help you belong. Best wishes, Mother." My hands trembled as I showed Jason expecting, hoping he would finally be just as furious. But his face brightened. "Mom's trying. Claire, this is considerate. You can traverse our environment with these talents. Your world." The words escaped before I could stop them. "I thought we built our planet together." I was patronized by his forehead kiss. "Yes, we are. You must acknowledge you weren't taught some things as a child." Filling in gaps. As we stood in our kitchen with the gifts, I should have left. It should have been obvious that Nick would never choose me above his family. He basically agreed with their evaluation of my worth. Instead, I walked down the aisle 3 days later with my father's arm around me, and my mother wiping proud tears in the front row. The right side of the church was crowded with politicians, cos, and old-money Boston families who watched me with courteous smiles and calculating looks. "Your marriage is announced." Vivian looked over Jason's shoulder as he placed the wedding band next to my engagement ring. She won with her smile. The message was plain. The struggle had only begun, but she thought she was winning. Who knew that behind my tearful bridal smile lurked a hardened heart? Their brutality will plant the seed of strength to leave and take what they value. First, I'll discover my opponent. The Wright family made marriage like slow-motion drowning. Each day, another inch of water rose around me, but no one noticed or cared. First Thanksgiving as a married couple should have been fun. The ritual of exclusion repeated at every family gathering afterward. We met at the Wright estate, where Thomas ceremonially sliced the turkey and Vivian commanded the staff. I stood behind Jason adjusting my carefully chosen dress for family photos. Vivian agreed grudgingly. "Claire, why not take the picture?" Her voice tastes poisonous. Vivian said, "You see these things well." A camera was forced into my hands before I could answer. I saw the Wright family via the viewfinder. Now my family is meant to be an ideal formation. Jason sat between his parents without looking back. "Smile." My empty voice obsesses me. Jason shrugged when I mentioned it later. "Mom just wants lovely family photos. We'll join you next time." Next time never comes. At Christmas, I was sent to the kitchen to check on dessert as the photographer arrived. My Easter assignment was to entertain distant cousins' children for the family portrait. Jason gets stronger and practices his excuses. Like a ghost haunting their immaculate tableau, I am there but unrepresented in the Wright family history. After 6 months of marriage, Jason started placing fashion magazines on our coffee table with articles about subtle beauty changes. "Darling," he remarked one evening as I browsed another magazine he'd left out. "Imagine doing something with your nose. A little tweak." I reflexively touched my nose. "Problems with my nose?" Jason sat next to me, holding my hand. "Nothing wrong with it. Just Mom mentioned." He resisted but too late. "Your mother discussed my nose." A smack hurt instantly. "She only wants what's best for us," Jason added in that pompous tone I'd come to hate. "The annual shareholders meeting is coming up. You'll be photographed for the company newsletter." She suggested presenting the best family brand image. "You mean?" My voice froze. "Indeed, it's vital. You now reflect me, and I reflect the organization." The recommendations increased in frequency and specificity. My hair was boring. Adding highlights may add class. My jawline needs shaping. My casual walk lacked proper posture. I became a project that never met specs as each criticism eroded my identity. The confidence that helped Jason recognize me at that charity event evaporated like a sun-damaged photo. An annual Wright Foundation charity gala commemorated our 1-year milestone. I spent weeks planning, examining guest lists, remembering Boston's affluent family's ties, and rehearsing small talk about relevant themes. Jason persuaded me to have Vivian's exquisite updo, which made me look more like her. I wore a black dress that cost more than my first car to watch Jason dazzle investors and business associates that night. Vivian approached a silver-haired man in a suit. "Charles, I'd like you to meet Jennifer, Jason's wife," she added, touching my arm. Charles looked between me, detecting tension. "Oh, of course, Claire." Vivian's giggle tinkled like shattered glass. "I was thinking of Jennifer Lopez. Doesn't she look like her, Charles? Something about the features." Jason watched with a tight smile, saying nothing. Later, Vivian introduced me as Jessica to a judge and Kathy to a congressman's wife. Each time Jason's defense weakened until he stopped correcting her. "It's just a slip of the tongue," he said on the way home. "Mom meets hundreds at these events. You're being oversensitive. It's been a long night." He turned away, ending the conversation. That night, while Jason slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and wondered when I had become invisible in my marriage. On an ordinary Tuesday, Jason left his briefcase in the hall when he rushed out for an early meeting. I noticed it while going to coffee with a friend, my increasingly rare attempt to live outside the right orbit. I grabbed the briefcase and planned to drop it off at his office. My car tipped over, spilling some contents onto the passenger seat. As I gathered the papers, my hand froze over a small pharmacy paper bag with 2 pregnancy test kits and a yellow sticky note. "Vanessa, Potential mother of a true right heir. Pick up champagne if positive. The handwriting was Vivian's, and the implication was devastating. Who is Vanessa? My mind races through every conversation, event, and introduction. Then I remembered Tina, Senator Hall's daughter, who had attended several rite functions. Tall, blonde, meticulously bred, with Mayflower ancestry. Everything I wasn't. I replaced everything exactly as I'd found it, and gave the briefcase to Jason's assistant without seeing him. That night, I waited for him to explain or lie to me, but he said he'd be working late all week on the annual company retreat in the Berkshires this weekend. I inquired calmly, all CEOs and their spouses. My eyes were ignored. You shouldn't come this year. Mom advises keeping it professional. Negotiating with foreign partners under pressure. Family retreats were always held. The spouse was always included. Another no-go. Another erase. I understood more than he thought, I said. I decided Friday morning when Jason left for the retreat. I traveled to the Wright's magnificent Berkshire Lodge, where they entertained key clients. I parked down the road and took the customary woods trail to the back of the home. All of them were visible from the main lodge's floor-to-ceiling windows. Thomas addressing executives, Vivian overseeing personnel, company officials mingling, and Jason sitting closely with a blonde woman on a quiet couch near the fireplace. She held his arm as they chuckled about something private. I stood still while Vivian smiled at them. I couldn't hear her toast as she handed them champagne glasses. It wasn't necessary. Celebration was obvious. Every smile, touch, and furtive gaze revealed their future without me. I saw my reflection in the darkened glass as I left, numb with the final affirmation of my disposability. A ghost at the limits of their universe viewing a life that was never mine. I realized the gradual disintegration of my confidence, identity, and family place that night alone in Jason and my purportedly shared house. Everything led up to this. I wasn't married. I was a placeholder till someone better arrived. I have nothing to do with them. While drying my tears and packing, I made a silent pledge to myself. I shall be everything someday. I signed the divorce papers steadily despite my broken heart. Wright family attorney looked at me with a hint of contempt. A man who had spent a month bullying me into accepting nothing while leaving. You know that, by waiving alimony, you're just entitled to what you contributed into the marriage, he added condescendingly. I looked at him and said, I know what I'm leaving. He didn't realize I'd taken something more important than money. I worked late for 3 weeks, methodically copying information from Jason's home office as Jason worked late with Vanessa. Supplier agreements, production schedules, contract details. Jason, certain of my insignificance, never hid his work files. He'd soon forget our wedding date, his password. Documents revealed Wright Delicacy's entire supply network. They rely on 3 suppliers for their distinctive ingredients. Exclusivity contracts expiring in 2 years, and their startling markup on artisanal products mass-produced in low-quality facilities. A folder on international expansion was most beneficial. A 5-year strategy by Mark to sell watered-down luxury items in Asia. Profits would soar and quality suffer. Solid business practices. I left the attorney's office with only my clothes, business degree, and the appropriate family's vulnerabilities. They believed I left empty-handed. It was clear I was leaving with everything. First stop. Not a new apartment or friend's sofa. A bus station with a one-way ticket to Portland, Oregon, was as distant from Boston's crowded social circles as I could get. Distance wasn't just geographical, existential. Claire Wright will die and be reborn as Eva. Portland welcomed me with misty mornings and coffee shop owners. I pre-rented a modest studio above a bookstore for 3 months. My final savings. I felt something unexpected that first night on a bare mattress with rain knocking on the windows. Freedom. The metamorphosis started the next morning. I went to a salon with long Wright-approved brown hair and left with a bright auburn bob that would have made Vivian gasp. A kind-eyed stylist with tattoo sleeves examined my face as I sat in her chair. This isn't just a haircut, is it? She questioned as she cut. It's an exorcism, I said, watching my old existence crumble. The wardrobe followed. The traditional outfits and pearls that never fit me were gone. I like expressive colors and patterns. Every new item was announced. Not what they made me. Final touch was unexpected. A voice and speech coach flyer caught my eye outside a theater. After performing on Broadway, Patricia now helps people find their voice. In our first session, she nodded knowingly as I spoke. She noted your training to soften your cadence, to round your vowels and copy others. Boston Brahmin patterns, I think. I didn't realize how much I'd internalized Vivian's speech training and had to eradicate my childhood Midwestern inflections. I told Patricia I want my voice back. I speak, not just sound. Something happened over the next 3 months as I regained my authentic speech patterns. Also, I found my voice in business. The plan developed. Everything changed with the letter. Grandmother Rose died peacefully in her sleep. When I was young, we were close, but the proper years separated us. Yet another relationship lost to my marriage. Along with my mourning came an unexpected legacy from her death. $30,000 and a box of belongings. Money saved the day. But the box was priceless. She possessed 1960s journals from her time as a recipe developer for Heartland Harvest, a tiny specialty foods firm. Her preservation recipes use unusual fruit and herb combinations. Strangely familiar recipes. One September 1967 entry struck my eye. Today, Mr. Wright toured the facility, cared about my blackberry sage preserve, asked several questions about herb-sweet balance, calls it groundbreaking. I'm flattered but suspicious of his interest. 3 months later, H. Heartland abruptly shuttered. Sales to investors. They said, "Today, I saw my blackberry sage preserve in stores with the Wright Delicacies label. No credit, no compensation. Mr. Mark Sr. stole my work and is making a fortune. No one will believe a woman over a powerful man." I sat among my grandmother's things, stunned. The irony was almost too perfect. Wright Delicacies had been built on theft, just as their son had stolen years of my life. Grandmother Rose had given me more than seed money. She'd given me moral clarity. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice, reclaiming what had been taken from both of us. Mira, Wright's product development director until last year, and I met over coffee. Margaret's bitterness and insider knowledge spilled out. Thomas had me develop this whole line of organic, sustainably sourced products. I created everything. He pulled the plug, saying it wasn't on brand. 2 weeks later I was laid off because my position was redundant. She leaned forward, voice dropping. But Thomas is wrong. The market is shifting towards sustainability. Delicacies are so focused on tradition that they can't see the future. They're vulnerable. Margaret wasn't the only one. I systematically connected with 6 former Wright employees, each sharing pieces of the puzzle. David from accounting revealed their cash flow weaknesses. Zoe from marketing explained how their brand was failing to connect with younger consumers. Carlos from operations described their outdated production facilities. Each conversation was casual and each relationship was cultivated without revealing my true connection to the Wright family. I was Claire Thompson, a business school graduate interested in specialty foods. My Wright past was buried under my new appearance, voice, and state, invisible but informing every move. At a sustainable business conference, I met Ben, a food industry angel investor with a passion for ethical business practices. Unlike Jason, Liam listened to me, his eyes lighting up as I explained my vision for a different kind of food company. Traditional food corporations exploit workers, consumers, and the environment, I said, thinking of my grandmother. Liam studied my business plan with growing excitement. This isn't just idealistic, it's strategically brilliant. You've identified real market gaps. I didn't tell him that Wright Delicacies had created or ignored those gaps. Every aspect of my Thompson Roots business plan was designed to succeed at their expense. Where Wright Delicacies was hierarchical, we will collaborate. Where they exploit suppliers, we will partner with them. Where they cut corners on quality to increase profits, we will prioritize integrity. After our third meeting, Liam offered to be your silent partner. You have the vision and drive. I have the capital and connections. 1 month later, Thompson Roots includes 1 employee, me, working out of a small commercial kitchen with my grandmother's journals open beside me as I recreated her recipes. However, I could already see the empire. It would be built to dismantle the house of Wright, brick by brick. They spent years making me invisible, but little did they know, invisibility had become my superpower. Thompson Roots grew organically, steadily, reaching for the light. Wright Delicacies relies on large-scale suppliers who provide lower-quality ingredients at volume discounts, so I built relationships with small Oregon farms to trace every ingredient in our jars. The farm-to-table model was ethical and strategic. I don't understand why you're bothering with these tiny operations, Liam said during our quarterly review. Consolidating suppliers would increase profit margins. Liam's eyes opened as I showed him our projected growth curve intersecting with Wright Delicacies' market share in exactly 3 years. Every jar we sell is one they don't. Every farm we partner with strengthens local agriculture, the opposite of Wright's industrialized approach. I replied that I preferred to think of it as justice with a business plan. Each decision I made served 2 purposes. When I chose eco-friendly packaging, it wasn't just to appeal to environmentally conscious consumers. Wright Delicacies had invested millions in proprietary plastic containers that were becoming unpopular with younger demographics. I prioritized fair wages and profit sharing for employees because Wright's notoriously high turnover caused quality control issues they struggled to address. I prioritized supply chain transparency by highlighting our farmers' names and stories on each label. Because Wright's hidden sourcing was becoming a liability in an age when consumers demanded authenticity. Our modest success in the Pacific Northwest might have continued if not for a chance encounter at a food industry conference in Seattle. I was presenting a session on sustainable business models when I noticed a woman in the back row watching me with unusual intensity. Her sharp gaze reminded me of someone, but I couldn't place who. She extended her hand shortly after. Kate. Impressive presentation. The name hit me like a physical blow. I kept my composure, shaking her hand with a smile that concealed my shock. Claire Thompson, thank you for coming. Your approach to ethical business is refreshing, she said. I've spent 10 years in corporate marketing watching companies pretend to care about sustainability while doing the bare minimum. I'd love to hear more about Thompson Roots. Catherine revealed she was Vanessa's older sister over coffee, though they hadn't spoken in years. My father groomed Vanessa to be the perfect political accessory, pretty, polished, and without principles. I refused to play that game and studied her, weighing risks and opportunities. What happened between you two? Catherine's expression darkened. I exposed my father's last senatorial race's questionable campaign finance practices, and Vanessa was furious. Not because he did anything wrong, but because I threatened the family image, which is all that matters to people like them. She paused, sipping her coffee. I hear she's engaged to a food industry heir. 2 weeks later, Katette became Thompson Roots marketing director. Her insider knowledge of how families like the Holtz and Wrights operated was invaluable. More importantly, she casually mentions Vanessa's activities with her fiancé Jason kept me informed of my ex-husband's life, without having to explain why. Vanessa called me unexpectedly yesterday. Catherine casually mentioned one afternoon as we reviewed packaging designs. Trying to mend fences, says she and Jason are having problems. He's drinking too much. The family business is struggling with new market pressures. I think she's realizing that marrying into money isn't all it seems. With Catherine's help, Thompson Roots launched a documentary series called From Soil to Table that streamed on our website and social media channels. Each episode covers a different aspect of ethical food production, sustainable farming, fair labor practices, and ingredient transparency. We didn't name Wright Delicacies because the contrast between our methods and theirs was implicit in every frame, every interview with happy farmers and workers, and every close-up of natural ingredients being transformed by traditional methods. The series went viral in food-conscious circles, earning features in culinary magazines and sustainability blogs. Each new follower and customer was another thread in the web I was weaving to entangle Wright Delicacies. Since our success requires expansion, I targeted Wright's strongest distribution areas: Boston, New York, Chicago. Each Thompson Roots jar on those shelves competes directly with Wright products. Out East expansion is cutting deeper into operating capital than we projected. Liam warned during our 4th-year review, "Are you sure the Boston market is worth this level of investment?" I showed him the latest sales figures. Boston consumers are switching to our products at twice the rate of other markets. Trust me. This is exactly where we need to be. What I didn't tell Boston rollout. A blind taste test marketing campaign where consumers compared unlabeled preserves and voted for their favorite. My grandmother's blackberry sage preserve outperformed Wright's by a large margin. My most satisfying strategy was also quite personal. I started our executive feedback program under the guise of market research when Thompson Roots expanded to the East Coast. We sent carefully curated gift baskets to influential food industry business leaders, including the Wright family, and received glowing feedback. Mark commented, "High quality and flavorful." Vivian commented, "Exquisite packaging and complex flavor characteristics. This would be appropriate for even the most discerning diners." Jason's comments were the most pleasing, superior to anything on the market. Right Delicacies should consider this a serious competitor. I kept those feedback forms in a special folder and read them on hard days when doubts crept in. They hadn't recognized my company name, and they wouldn't recognize me when we met again. Thompson Roots was still small compared to Right Ones, but I had something they didn't. Intimate knowledge of their weaknesses, blind spots, and vulnerabilities, and nothing to lose. The spider's web was nearly complete. All that was left was to draw them in for the final confrontation at the National Food Innovation Gala, where industry leaders will network and showcase their latest products. They discarded me, believing I would fade into insignificance. This year, Thompson Roots was nominated for the Rising Star Award, which would put us on the main stage and ensure the rights were seen when I took the microphone. I was ready for my moment of recognition 2 weeks before the National Food Innovation Gala. I had become their most dangerous opponent, one they didn't see coming until it was too late. Ray, Right Delicacies' largest investor, would speak at a sustainable business panel in Boston, so I made sure Thompson Roots sponsored the coffee break after his session. Lawrence was mid-60s, well-dressed, and had the sharp eyes of someone who made his fortune by seeing opportunities others missed. Mr. Barrett, Claire Thompson, founder of Thompson Roots. Your panel insights were fascinating. His handshake was firm, his smile practiced. Thompson Roots, the preserves company from Oregon, correct? Impressive growth trajectory. You've been following our progress. I follow everything in specialty food, and he studied me with new interests. Your Rising Star nomination is well deserved. We talked about market trends and sustainability. Then I carefully addressed his investment portfolio. I know you invest heavily in Right Delicacies. I said their traditional approach dominates the market for decades. Barrett's expression changed at my use of past tense. Mark has built a remarkable legacy. Legacy is a powerful word. I agree, but I wonder if traditional companies can adapt quickly enough to changing consumer preferences. I shared market analysis data that directly highlights Right Delicacies' vulnerabilities without naming them. Barrett asked increasingly pointed questions. His concern was palpable. He suggested we continue this conversation over dinner next week, which I agreed to do knowing he would be researching Thompson Roots and questioning his investment. Catherine burst into my office the next day, flushed with excitement. You won't believe what my sister just told me. She's filing for divorce. Vanessa is leaving Jason because he's impossible to live with. Right Delicacies is in financial trouble. Jason is drinking heavily and Thomas is determined to change strategies despite falling market share. I keep my expression neutral. How unfortunate. Catherine leans forward conspiratorially. Vanessa is already seeing someone else. Congressman Drew. She told me she needs to secure her future with someone who still does. The ruthless calculation was so Vanessa, so right adjacent, that I almost admired it. Jason had served his purpose in her life, just as I had in mine. The symmetry was poetic. You know what this means for our plan, right? Jason will be vulnerable, distracted. Perfect timing. I agreed. Our plan to acquire the Right Delicacies had just become much easier. The gala night arrived with perfect dramatic timing. A light snow fell over Boston as my car pulled up to the historic hotel venue. I stepped out wearing a blackberry-colored gown and my grandmother's locket with a small photo of her, my silent partner in this 7-year journey. The ballroom sparkled with crystal and ambition as industry leaders worked over champagne and screens displayed the nominated companies. Thompson Roots' promotional video played alongside those of much larger corporations, including Right Delicacies. I saw them across the room. Thomas, older but still imposing. Vivian, elegant in midnight blue, surveying the crowd like a general. And Jason, handsome as ever, but with new lines around his eyes. Vanessa was absent. I moved carefully to avoid their gaze. Ray nodded meaningfully. Our dinner conversation had clearly had the desired effect. Phase 1 was complete. The Rising Star Award was announced midway through the evening. When they called Thompson Roots, applause erupted. Thompson Roots was founded on the simple idea that food should nourish not only our bodies but also our communities and planet. As I spoke about our journey, Ray approached Mark and whispered something in his ear. After the ceremony, I strategically moved until I met Jason. 7 years had changed us both, but while time had darkened his features, it had given me confidence. Congratulations on your award, he said, his smile gone. Impressive for such a new company. Thank you, Jason, I replied, watching for recognition in his name. Nothing. I believe business should be built on integrity, Not just profits. He nodded absently, clearly not connecting this stranger with his past. I watched him leave satisfied. The real confrontation will come tomorrow in the Right Delicacies boardroom. The next morning, I arrived on time for Ray's meeting with the Wrights. He told them about a potential investment opportunity. When I entered the boardroom, Mark looked confused. "Miss Thompson, I don't understand." I placed a folder on the table and explained Right Delicacies' current position, and Thompson Roots offer to acquire controlling interest. The room was shocked. Jason almost choked on coffee. "How silly. We're not selling to startups. Your company's market value has dropped 30% in 2 years," I said calmly. 3 key suppliers are considering contract breaks. Your core demographic is fading, and newer consumers perceive your brand antiquated and unethical. Thomas's face flushed with anger. "How could you possibly know about our supplier issues?" "The same way I know about your cash flow problems and the loans you've taken against your family estate," I replied. "Due diligence." Jason glared at Barrett. "This is a hostile takeover." "This is business," Barrett replied. Jason picked up the acquisition contract, his hands trembling as he flipped through the pages. "Sign it," Thomas ordered, his voice resigned. "We can't fight this." As Jason's pen hesitated over the signature line, I decided it was time. I removed my grandmother's locket and opened it to reveal her photo. "Know who you're selling to before signing," I added gently. Jason looked up, exasperated, then froze. He dropped the pen, spilling ink across the contract. "Claire." His voice whispered. "Hello, Jason. 7 years." Finally connecting the dots, Vivian gasped. "Impossible. I think your term was unworthy," I answered, my gaze unwavering. "Funny how things change." Jason signed the contract speechless. I moved another document forward as he returned it. A journal post by my grandmother concerning the stolen blackberry sage preserve recipe. I explained that Thompson Roots' success went beyond business strategy. Reclaiming what was stolen, especially my Nora's recipes that made Right Delicacy famous. Thomas's face became pale as he read the recipe. He grasped his chest, laboring to breathe. Slander. A documented fact. I corrected as Vivian ran to her husband. "Maybe call a doctor." As paramedics stabilized Thomas for a slight heart attack, I finalized acquisition paperwork. Thompson Roots owned Wright Specialties by midday. My last deed was probably the most personal. On that evening, I drove to the Wright estate, my company's property but where they might stay temporarily. I left a jar of blackberry sage preserve and handwritten delicacies wrapping with a Thompson Roots label on the doorstep. The handwritten note was reclaimed, not stolen, like my worth. 7 years earlier, I left with my name and honor. I returned to take everything else. Not for vengeance, but for justice for myself, my grandma, and everyone denied rights. In the game they started, I did what they never expected. Checkmate. Smash that like button now if this delicious vengeance narrative had you on edge. Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. My infertile sister raged when I got pregnant, claiming I stole a chance from others. My mother took her side and kicked me out. I, a 30 female, never thought my family would fight over assisting underprivileged youngsters. Everything started 7 years ago, however I must share last week's events. Following college, I became an at-risk youth mentor at a local community center at 22. I teamed with Mary, a 10-year-old kid whose mother, Amanda, 35 female, was working and dealing with personal issues. Mary was smart but behind in school due to family instability. We had tutoring and activities twice weekly. Amanda called me late one night after 6 months of coaching. She sounded exhausted and desperate. After her landlord evicted them, she couldn't find cheap housing. Amanda asked me to keep Mary for a few weeks while she recovered. Due to space in my 2-bedroom apartment, I accepted. 2 weeks became 2 months, then 3. Amanda visited occasionally but struggled to find work and housing. To authorize and help Mary, the mentoring program coordinator encouraged me to become a foster parent. Mary moved in 6 months after I finished home studies and fostered her. Amanda seeks stability. Right now, we get along. Almost daily, Mary was visited and called. Never tried to replace Amanda. I told Mary her mother wanted her home. Amanda and I had a long conversation 5 years ago when Mary was 12 and I was 24. She had a steady income but her home was unstable, and she worried about removing Mary from the school where she had finally found success. We decided I should defend Mary's legal rights. Amanda battled this decision. Through tears, I watched her sign the paperwork, because she thought her daughter would benefit. A new normal emerged. Mary debated, gained friends, and did well in school. Amanda visits her weekends and calls often. I safeguarded their relationship. Amanda contacted me 2 years later. She struggled to care for her kid Ethan while working full-time. She wanted me to foster him so the siblings could be together. After considering it, I took 2-year-old Ethan home. Using accountant savings, I moved us to a 3-bedroom property with a yard. Work introduced me to 31-male Kevin last year. After months, he got a job in another state, and we split up. We broke up without my knowing I was pregnant. I'm 25 weeks pregnant with my first. My older sister Emily, 35 female, has been trying to conceive with her husband for 9 years without success. After several fertility treatments, each failure is awful. Emily always envisioned parenthood. She dreamed of it since infancy. She helped Mary move in with me by bringing clothes and toys and taking her on weekend outings. She welcomed Ethan into our family, but her visits decreased. She cited her job schedule, but I think the kids showed her what she needed. I told my family 3 weeks ago I was pregnant. My parents loved their new grandson. Emily offered a generic congratulations before switching topics. Emily stopped returning my calls and texts after that call. Last week my mother hosted Sunday supper for us. I went alone because a friend watched Mary and Ethan. The meal was filled with pregnancy queries from my folks. Did I feel good? Did I consider names? Was the nursery ready? Emily stared at me coldly when the baby was mentioned before leaving. After supper, Emily questioned me why I took 2 foster kids when I could have real kids. Table silence. Amanda got therapy. I became a foster parent to stabilize Mary. We decided permanent guardianship was best, and Ethan moved in with me to keep the siblings together. I hardened Emily's face with every word. She said I forced my instant family on her after years of trying. She argued that I had 2 children without trying to be a mother, and now I was carelessly having a biological child. The worst part was when she said it was cruel that I took 2 foster children who could have gone to parents who deserved them more since they couldn't have children. Her comments physically shook me. My foster kids weren't astonished to be sent to the best couple, but I felt her pain. Their mother asked me to help her house the kids safely. I apologize for her issues, but I wouldn't apologize for taking in poor children. Mom asked me to go after quietly watching this encounter. I took my stuff without saying anything. Mom called the next day. She said my hostility to Emily was unnecessary given her situation. My sister was wounded and suggested I apologize. Emily received a text apologizing for my harsh comments but not the content. I respected her journey and suffering, but I wouldn't take responsibility or let her imply my relationship with Mary and Ethan snatched children from better parents. Emily ignored my text. My mother called again to say I was exacerbating things by doubling down instead of apologizing. I'm in my kitchen watching Mary and Ethan build a block tower, wondering if I did something wrong. Mary is constantly asking when we'll visit Grandma and Grandpa again, and I'm stumped. I've always tried to do what's best for these kids, but I worry if my family would accept our unique parenting style. Was my effort excessive? Should I have cared for Emily more? Is my opinion correct? Update 1. My family's issues have grown 2 weeks after the dinner catastrophe. First, thanks to everyone who replied to my initial post. Your support confirmed my right to defend my children and family. Many of you had relatives who viewed foster care selfishly, which helped me feel less alone. After that text, Emily blocked my number and erased me from all her social media accounts without responding. Though expected, it's startling. My mother was supposed to visit 2 days before my 28th week anatomy scan last week. She canceled via phone. She stated Emily was too upset to hear my name and my mother didn't want to help me at the scan. She recommended that I reschedule after things calmed down. No rescheduling. Instead, I took Ethan to the appointment. The clinic nurses loved him, and he read picture books while the ultrasound technician conducted it. Watching him joyfully point at the TV when the baby moved made my mother and sister's absence less noticeable. After the visit, Mom texted to ask how it went and if I learned the baby's sex. Got the message but didn't respond. Say what? That a child may replace her at the clinic? That a stranger cared more about my pregnancy than my family? Dad called 4 days ago. His call surprised me because he's impartial on family issues. After my mother told him about skipping the anatomy scan, he checked on me. He occasionally asked questions but mostly let me tell about what happened since supper. After I finished, he said something shocking. Emily and my mother were wrong, he thought. He added, providing a home for children who needed one was never something to apologize for. And while he understood Emily's pain, she had no right to make me feel guilty for my choices or my pregnancy. He volunteered to stay with me after the baby was delivered with his new wife, Susan. He proposed they help with Mary and Ethan for 2 weeks while I healed, even though they lived 3 hours away. I needed postpartum assistance after my mother volunteered for this position. I heard from Emily's husband Tom yesterday. After our fight and therapy, he reported Emily was inconsolable. No apology was requested. He admitted Emily's dinner remarks were unacceptable. He wanted me to know she was getting help and hoped we could reconcile. He was appreciated and I was delighted Emily was getting therapy. Reconciliation must value my 3 children and acknowledge that Mary and Ethan are youngsters who require safety and stability, not consolation trinkets for infertile parents. After sending that communication, I sat down with Mary to explain her aunt and grandmother's predicament, in age-appropriate terms. To digest disagreements, grown-ups need time apart, I told her. I assure her it had nothing to do with her, or Ethan, and that I prioritized our family, including the new baby. Mary thoughtfully asked her aunt why the baby bothered her. I stressed that seeing others get what they want can make individuals angry. She agreed, adding she felt the same when her friend brought her the sneakers she wanted for her birthday, but her mom, Amanda, couldn't afford them. I occasionally admire 14-year-old wisdom. I accepted my father's postpartum aid via SMS this morning. Next, I updated Amanda by phone. She calls Mary twice a week and visits monthly. Her health is good. She was promoted at work and moved into her apartment over a year ago. She worried about the family tension and volunteered to keep both kids for a weekend before the baby arrived so I could prepare. My mother's loyalty to Emily over a milestone and my pregnancy still affects me. I focus on people who've supported me and my kids instead of her. The child is male. All scan tests were normal. Mary is pleased to have another brother. First gift I gave her when she moved in, she gave him a plush elephant. Ethan doesn't comprehend, but he pats my belly and says, "Baby," smiling. I haven't named the baby. Due to my busy schedule, it keeps sliding off. I have 12 weeks to decide, so suggestions are welcome. Thank you again for helping. It means more than you realize. Update 2. 3 months have gone since my last update, and the baby is 3 weeks old. Baby life comes first, but much has happened and I want to update. Birth first. Alex, 7 pounds 2 ounces, was born 2 weeks early. Work was easy, but tiresome. 14-hour runtime. My father and Susan arrived almost presciently the day before I gave birth. While I was in the hospital, they brought Mary and Ethan to visit Alex and me. Mary's reaction to her new sibling was beautiful. Her thorough treatment of him showed her wonder and pride. Ethan liked the hospital bed controls better than the baby, but he named Alex Tiny and caressed his head. Amanda took handmade baby blankets to the hospital. She sat with me when Mary showed her the baby and later said she was proud of Mary's youth. This time together via our unique family bonds is precious. My sister and mother's health. My mother asked which hospital after hearing I was in labor. After Alex was born, I replied with his birth stats and a photo. When could she visit? I told her I wasn't ready for guests beyond immediate support after talking to my father. I received many texts about my harshness and separating her from her grandson. She stated I was punishing her for supporting Emily, and that a baby should unite the family. I needed time to recover without stress, so my father told her to depart. Alex received a large present a week after hospitalization. A costly bassinet and baby clothing were inside. Tom and Emily signed the card. Only names, no messages. So I called Tom to thank them for the gifts. He was astonished by my message and said Emily suggested the bassinet. He hesitated before saying she wasn't ready to talk. I said I appreciated the offer and the door was open for her to discuss. Mom unexpectedly visited my house 2 days later. Ethan was at playgroup, Mary was at school, and my father and Susan went grocery shopping while I was alone with a newborn. She kept ringing the doorbell, waking Alex, who had fallen asleep after eating. She pushed by me into the house and went to the living room bassinet when I opened the door. She grabbed Alex before I could stop her, raving about meeting her grandson. I felt violated by her intervention and didn't want to upset the baby. I told her to sit down and that while I was glad she wanted to meet Alex, entering unannounced was wrong. I asked her to follow my boundaries if she wanted to join us. Should I not have hidden the infant from the family, she wouldn't need such measures. Mother's mood changed once father and Susan returned. Her planned visit included giving me the baby. After witnessing my face, my father advised my mother to leave. After crying, she called to say I was turning everyone against her. Emily sent me a long email the next day. Her therapist advised her to write, but not communicate her feelings. She sent it anyway. She apologized and accused me, saying her dinner words were hurtful and that my ease at having children was a personal attack on her suffering. The final paragraph stated that she and Tom were authorized as foster parents and anticipated their first placement next month. She claimed that her therapist helped her realize her resentment at me was unwarranted and that foster care will heal her. She said she wasn't ready to see me or the baby, but wished to reconcile. Good luck with her first placement, and congrats on foster parent permission. I gave her some guidance from my early fostering days and offered to talk when she was ready. No reply. My dad and Susan stayed 3 weeks longer than intended. Their help was crucial. They maintained Mary and Ethan's schedules, kept the house running well, and gave me quiet time between feedings. I was prepared for their departure. Amanda comes twice a month. She offered to care for Mary and Ethan for a week in the summer so I could focus on the baby. Mary is excited about this plan since Amanda moved to a poolside apartment complex. Getting used to 3 kids. Watching Mary read to her boys while they listen intently makes night feedings worthwhile. Ethan calls himself mommy's helper and brings me diapers. While my mother and sister's issue remains unresolved, I've found peace in focusing on our family in this house. My motherhood journey wasn't what I expected, but I wouldn't alter it for my 3 kids. Update 3. Alex, now a healthy, smart 9-month-old, has started crawling and getting into everything since my previous report 6 months ago. Though busy, my 3 kids and I have family routines. Emily and I are carefully repairing our relationship, which is the biggest news. I was texted 3 months ago to meet for coffee alone. I had Amanda watch the kids. She's my rock and met Emily at a cafe between our homes. Weather and haircut conversation dominated the first 10 minutes, making them awkward. She then showed me her phone photo of Marcus, her first foster child. Discussing Marcus affected Emily's face. She described his dinosaur fascination, reading difficulties and nightly monster check under the bed. She detailed his nightmares, initial mistrust, social worker and biological family meetings, and other issues. Something she said showed her progress. Missed it. Fostering was supposed to fill my void. It's not about me. Marcus assists his mother till she can. I nodded, grateful for her way of understanding. She said Marcus's mother was sober and working to reconcile in a year. Emily shakily replied she would miss Marcus when he went home but supported reunion. She apologized. She denied that I stole children from deserving parents, or that fostering gave her comfort. She said her immune system had consumed her, preventing her from looking beyond her loss. Fostering Marcus showed her that systemic children don't solve adult issues. While their families heal, they need safe temporary lodging. I accepted her apology and apologized for my harsh statements during our fight. We spent the next hour talking about nighttime anxieties, reaching a child with walls, and building biological family relationships. We became sisters after years of hatred. Emily wanted to see Alex, Mary, and Ethan before leaving. Marcus played in the park with us the following weekend. The kids clicked instantly. Mary directed the smaller boys, and Ethan appreciated Marcus's dinosaur knowledge. After seeing only one baby photo, Emily hugged Alex, amazed with his progress. Our family meets monthly. Relationship repair continues. When old hurts return, tension rises, but we continue. My mother-daughter bond is tougher to repair. After her unexpected visit, I wrote her a letter setting clear boundaries. No surprise visits, no criticizing my parenting or family structure. I made it clear she had to respect these boundaries to be with us. No response after 2 months. Card with a little letter arrived in the mail. I miss my grandchild. Willing to listen. Try brief supervised visits. She hesitated, but she relaxed when she saw I wasn't punishing her, just setting boundaries. Mary's school play last month featured my mother. She hugged and told Mary she was proud later. Later that night she pulled me aside and apologized for favoring her daughters. Her revelation of what mattered came from seeing all 3 children prosper under my care. Our relationship isn't ideal but improving. Amanda stays with us. She brought her new beau to dinner at our house last month. Seeing her introduce him to Mary and Ethan was powerful. She encouraged my involvement in their lives and was confident in motherhood. This adventure showed me that family is about cooperation, not competition. Mary turned 16 last week. She requested calm conversation while we prepared her birthday supper. After thinking, she wanted to adopt us. We considered this over the years, knowing she could decide when she was ready. To hear her say she was ready made me cry. The legal process starts next month. Ethan, 4, loves his big sister and entertains Alex. Alex makes Ethan laugh most. Emily and Tom are willing to foster their second child, whose mother needs time to recover. Emily called me for nursery advice and we spent hours discussing the emotional and practical aspects of fostering a newborn. Marcus thrives under their care and will return next spring. Our journey has been surprising. When I started mentoring 7 years ago, I never imagined 3 motherhoods, an irreversible family breakup, and a deeper knowledge of family. Though hard, watching my children grow up with a biological and chosen family is worth it. Go to the next story. Story 2. My parents claim my sister's marriage was damaged by my advice. Months later, a horrible secret affects everything. I'm 34F and have endured months of family issues causing insomnia. Focusing on my younger sister Ella, 29F, her arranged husband Richard, 31M, and their 2 children, Jill, 7F, and Jack, 4MM. Ella met Richard in college. Opposites attract. Although Ella was organized, Richard was more casual. Their balance made things seem fine for a time. They married after college and had Jill a year later. Richard was overjoyed with Jill's birth. He talked of teaching her while watching her sleep for hours. Richard was overjoyed when Jack was born 3 years later. He'd always wanted a son and was delighted to take Jack fishing and camping. However, changes occurred. Richard was often absent, because his new job required more travel. Ella left with 2 young children and a full-time job. This stresses their connection. Ella lloró llamándome el año pasado. She found affair hints on Richard's phone. He denied it, but admitted to feeling a connection with a co-worker when challenged. He maintained nothing happened but trust suffered. After months of counseling, nothing worked. Richard was defensive and tough, Ella said. 8 months ago, they parted. They let Richard watch the kids every other weekend and review after 6 months. Early on, things went well. Richard will pick up and drop off the kids Friday and Sunday nights. Finally, he apologized. He worked late on a weekend. Next, he was unwell. He took the kids once a month max. I have 8-year-old twins Emma and Olivia, and 9-year-old Noah. Jill and Jack got along with their relatives, so I took them when Richard canceled. I chose relatives above father disappointment for kids. Richard took advantage. He called me immediately to ask if I could take the kids on his weekend, saying, "Your place is usually better." Furious, but I didn't want to disappoint the kids. I told Richard repeatedly. I suggested he help his kids. His excuses were common. Work, illness, or unavoidable plans stopped him from canceling. Spending time with his kids seemed optional. I have many terrible memories of this. My ex-husband Brian got worse after our divorce. He'd cancel at the last minute, leaving me scrambling for childcare. It took me a while to realize his actions hurt our kids and me. It finished last month. Even on his weekend, Richard asked me to take the kids on Friday afternoon. His explanation now: forgot his concert tickets. I took the kids despite my fury. Ella looked exhausted when she picked them up Sunday. She complained about Richard's dependability. She couldn't plan weekends since she didn't know if he'd take the kids. My Brian experience made me sympathize with her. I changed our custody arrangement so Brian could only get the kids when he asked. I mentioned how easier it was not to rely on him following a schedule and how my kids were happier not being disappointed. Ella took it seriously. She thanked me for listening and left with the kids. I thought that was it, but she notified Richard about changing their agreement. Richard raged at me the next day. He said I was trying to turn Ella against him and kidnap his kids. Shocked. None told Ella what to do. Shared experience. Richard didn't listen when I explained. Yelled at me for being a rotten sister and to mind my own business. I was fed up and snapped at him. If he wasn't inconsistent, Ella wouldn't change. My family's divided. My family agrees with Richard that I shouldn't have interfered. Richard has always been special because he helped Dad renovate their kitchen a few years ago. My brother likes my performance. He never liked Richard after he missed his birthday 2 years in a row. Our parents are urging Ella to stay still after I opened her eyes. They say Richard is struggling and needs help, not criticism. I worry about overstepping. Should I have kept silent about my experience? Am I responsible for accidentally provoking family strife? All this reminds me of Jill and Jack. Jill is old enough to know her dad cancels, and I've seen her disappointment. Jack is too little to comprehend. He inquired why they saw their dad less. Part of me wants Ella and Richard to resolve it. But I also want to fight for those kids so they don't think their dad doesn't want to spend time with them. I keep thinking about how much happier my kids are after I change Brian. His commitment to the time makes him rarely cancel when they meet. It altered their life. Maybe every situation is different. Maybe Richard is just having a tough moment and will recover. I may project my issues upon Ella. No idea what to do. Should I apologize to Richard and my parents? Should I continue? Should I totally avoid it? I always worry that someone may dislike me. A month has gone since my last post, and much has happened. I appreciate everyone's advice and assistance. So I was right to inform Ella about my experience. Post-fight tensions were high in our family. Ella was pressured by our parents to go since Richard needed time to adjust to single dadhood. Ella separated. She didn't want to offend Richard, but she was fed up with his inconsistency. I avoided it whenever possible. I invited Jill and Jack to play with my kids, but Ella, not Richard. He wouldn't get more ammunition against me. One weekend while the kids were there, Jill asked me why her dad didn't want to see them. The heart broke. I tried to imply she loved her dad, but adults have trouble. She seemed happier after our chat, but I'm not sure she understood. The culmination was 2 weeks ago. Weekend with the kids was Richard's plan. Ella dropped them off Friday night, but Richard called at 9 p.m. to say he had to work out of town and suggested she bring them up. Ella raged. She planned her childless weekend. Ella phoned me. She sobbed and requested me to watch the kids overnight. Sure, I agreed. Jill cried when she dropped them off, asking why her dad didn't want to see them. Why they moved late at night puzzled and annoyed Jack. Ella came early the next day. She was ready to confront Richard and modify their deal. As requested, I watched the kids while she talked to him. Ella was out, so I distracted the kids. They were afraid while we baked cookies, played board games, and built a pillow fort in the living room. Jill kept asking when her mother would arrive and Jack clung. Miss Ella vanished for hours. She looked fatigued, but relieved when she returned. She said she and Richard had a long, difficult conversation. To defend himself, Richard said work was crazy. But Ella persevered. Richard was advised he would no longer have set weekends with the kids. He had to ask her a week ahead to take them for a weekend. Last-minute cancellations cost him his next shot. Ella continued despite Richard's disapproval. She told him his behaviors affected the kids, and this was his last chance to prove himself trustworthy. Parents were upset when they learned. I was accused of poisoning Ella against Richard at my house that night. It was Richard's behavior, not my advice to Ella, I said. A fierce argument ensued. Our dad kept saying Richard was trying, and our mom accused me of jealousy since Richard was a better father than my ex. That hurts. Despite his flaws, my ex was punctual. Every time Richard canceled on the kids, I reminded them how upset Jill and Jack were. I asked if Richard could treat his kids like options. That made them pause, but they granted Richard more time. After the argument, parents left to think. Not talking to them is hard. Our family has always been close, so this rift hurts. Ella was helpful. Our conversation inspired her to protect herself and her children. She claims she neglected Jill and Jack to maintain peace. Peace is uneasy for now. Richard's accepted the change but is upset. Ella seems more in charge. The change is confusing, but kids are adapting. Recently, Jill wondered why things changed. I said her parents were trying to find ways to spend time with her and Jack. She agreed, but she seemed nervous. It may not solve everything, but it's a start. Without last-minute cancellations, Ella relaxes. This should inspire Richard to spend more time with the kids. I'm supporting Ella and the kids. Ella knows I'm always willing to help Jill and Jack. I'm also giving our parents space to help them change. While it's difficult and will take time for everyone to adjust, I think Jill and Jack will benefit. This new setup should provide them with reliable parents. Update 2. Again, things changed abruptly this month. New agreement with Richard appeared fine at first. He scheduled a visit to the kids and arrived on time. Ella was cautiously optimistic. Ella cried on the phone 2 weeks ago. She learned Richard lost his job 3 months previously without notifying anyone. He was preoccupied with job interviews or trying to make ends meet when he said he was busy or had to go out of town for business. This news saddens Ella, She and Richard were always upfront about money. They made all major decisions collectively. Richard lost her trust after keeping this secret for so long. Ella was confused. She was outraged that Richard lied to her and the kids. She regretted being hard on him when he struggled. She asked my counsel. I advised her to quietly talk to Richard and get all the information before making a decision. Ella agreed and met Richard the next day. Their conversation revealed much. Richard said he was too embarrassed to tell anyone he lost his job. Getting a new one before anyone discovered it took longer than expected. He couldn't afford to eat or take the kids out, so he canceled. Much is made clear by this. Though not justified, Richard's actions make sense. It reminded me that pride and embarrassment can cause unwise decisions. Ella se arrepintió de la traición de Richard, pero entendió por qué. The solution was discussed for hours. Another deal was made. Ella is more flexible, but Richard must request the kids in advance. She offered to help with the kids financially while Richard looked for work. Ella told me this, and I was amazed but proud of her understanding. I told her to be cautious. She should check Richard's employment search to make sure he wasn't taking advantage of her kindness. Our parents altered their thoughts after learning. They criticized Ella for softening after scolding her for being tough on Richard. Ella shouldn't trust Richard's excuses, they warned. Another family conflict. Instead of making Ella stricter with Richard, our parents say I manipulated her again. Ella was an autonomous adult, I said. Parents indicated they were done after the fight. No further advice or help till we revealed our feelings. This entire episode has shown me how quickly we judge others without understanding the complete story. I think Richard should have been honest from the start, but I can appreciate how painful it was to lose his career. Ella and Richard are adjusting to their new agreement. More time with Dad makes the kids happier. Richard seems more interested with them, probably because he's less worried about them uncovering his secret. Supporting Ella as best I can. I've offered to help with the kids when needed, and am monitoring the situation to avoid Richard from taking advantage. My guess is that Ella and Richard's honesty and cooperation will help everyone, especially the youngsters. Update 3. Over 2 months since my last update, I'm still processing. The outcome was surprising. Richard worried and called Ella 3 weeks ago. He had a great job interview, but it was the weekend he was supposed to have the kids. He advised Ella to switch weekends. Ella offered to help Richard find work. I watched Jill and Jack so Ella could rest on interview day. Nothing was wrong until Ella called me furiously at 3 p.m. Police contacted her recently. His car wrecked on the interview route. Without knowing what to expect, we went to the hospital. Despite Richard's broken leg and bruises, we were relieved to find him alive. Here, things get tough. The accident responding officer visited us while Richard was hospitalized. He said Richard's automobile had open alcohol containers and his blood alcohol level was high. Ella was devastated. That moment dashed her hopes for Richard's future. She cried in the hospital waiting. My anger prevented me from comforting her. Richard risked death. He missed a great job that may have supported his kids. A few days after Richard left the hospital, Ella approached him. He cried and admitted to drinking for years before splitting. He said it helped him cope with unemployment and shame over not supporting his family. Our uncle's lengthy alcoholism sprang to mind with this news. It broke up our extended family and took a long time to heal. We might do the same with Richard, I thought. Ella separated. Her rage at Richard for jeopardizing everyone. She knew he needed help. After heated debate, the conclusion was reached. Richard accepted rehab. He can't visit the kids alone throughout treatment. Ella will update him twice a week via video chat on Jill and Jack. Explaining this to kids was hard. Due to her age, Jill had many difficult questions. Thank goodness Jack was too young to understand. Ella explicó a ellos que su padre necesitaba hospitalización especial. The news shocked our parents. They apologized to Ella and me for missing signs. They've helped with kids and Richard's treatment. Even though it took a major event to unify us, having them back has been comforting. My mind is still processing. I'm furious with Richard for jeopardizing so many, but I hope he gets help. Helping Ella and the kids through this difficult time is my top priority. Ella is strong. She informed the kids in an age-appropriate manner that their dad is ill and seeking therapy. She attends Ellen and meetings for self-help. I've been trying to normalize Jill and Jack's time with me, including baking and watching movies, despite their confusion and sadness. Jack is clingy, and Jill suffers nightmares. Despite the emotional roller coaster and lengthy road ahead, I'm cautiously hopeful that this could be a turning point for Richard and his relationship with his kids. Time will tell. Today, we're taking it day by day. Ella puts her kids and rehabilitation first. As Richard recovers, I'm attempting to be my family's supportive sister and aunt. I learned about communication, not jumping to conclusions, and family dynamics intricacy from this occurrence. Though difficult, I think we'll all be stronger. Thanks for watching and sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next drama-filled episode. She once rejected me and chose another. Now, out of a toxic relationship, she says she still loves me, but I don't feel the same anymore. Lena, 28 female, and I met in a recreational volleyball league 3 years ago. Our team practiced twice a week and played weekend matches. Our friends formed that way. We had drinks or meals after every practice at 8. Corporate lawyer Chase, 30 male, was here. Lena caught my eye immediately. She was like this, not only in appearance but in energy. She loved teaching high school science and often had funny anecdotes about her students. Lena spoke most in our group after practice. Chase was also first intrigued by her. He always sat next to her and walked her to her car when we went out. Our group bonded in the first year. We shared birthdays, moved apartments, and went to Cape Cod for a weekend. Lena became more attractive to me throughout this time. She crossed my mind during work meetings and grocery shopping. We frequently texted about various topics, such as a hilarious dog she spotted on her way to work, a new restaurant, or book TV program recommendations. After a year and a half with Lena, I told her how I felt. It was difficult to decide. Changing our friendship kept me up at night. What if she declined? Would our relationship suffer? Would it affect all our friends? I pondered these questions for weeks. One night after practice, I invited Lena to coffee. Just us two. Near the gym, we visited this small cafe. I recall everything about that time. I saw the chipped blue mug in front of me, the espresso machine hum, and the dusk light through the windows. I informed Lena that my love for her had gone beyond friendship and asked if she would date me. Lena took what seemed like hours to respond to her coffee. She stated she loved our friendship but not me. She said she wasn't searching for a relationship because she was considering applying for a master's program. I spent hours staring at my ceiling at home that night. Despite the hurt, I appreciated her rejection. I avoided acting differently around her for several weeks. We kept playing volleyball, hanging out, and texting. The rejection pain dissipated as I focused on going forward. After rejecting me, Lena started dating Chase within 2 months. They revealed themselves during our Friday night drinks while holding hands. The sight hit me hard. They received congrats from everyone while I tried to absorb what was happening. She wasn't only dating someone else. She explicitly stated she didn't desire a relationship at that time. Seeing them together showed me her rejection wasn't about timing or priorities. She wasn't interested in me. I felt something change then. I lost interest in Lena. Not out of spite or resentment, but because shared passion is essential for my romantic desire. Without exchange, such feelings were trapped. I remained friends with Lena and Chase despite this news. I wanted Lena to be happy. Chase making her happy is fine with me. We still play volleyball, but I miss some after becoming CFO. Lena and I still texted, joked, and told stories. She became close friends with my sister, Claire, 32 female, with whom she went shopping and had lunch every few weeks. Thank goodness they connected. Claire wanted Boston friends after moving there recently. Chase and Lena split months ago. Our group was shocked, because they always appeared like a fantastic match. Chase stopped attending our meetings first, then Lena. When she joined us, she was quieter, and less herself. I discovered the truth 3 weeks ago. Shaking, Claire called me. Lena showed images of arm and back bruising. Chase abused her physically and emotionally. He continually judged her, monitored her phone, and cut her off from friends. This news left me flabbergasted. My longtime friend Chase, who laughed with us and helped us move apartments, was torturing Lena behind closed doors. Lena spent more time with Claire and at my house after this discovery. We encouraged her without pressuring her. She was improving, but I thought she needed professional help to digest things. Lena visited my apartment 2 weeks ago. We drank wine and chatted about nothing important. A new Netflix program, volleyball season, weather. 2 people can hardly stand in my tiny kitchen without knocking into each other. Lena kissed me while we laughed. I left the kiss after 10 seconds. I joked about the wine being stronger than expected. Lena laughed too, agreeing it was booze. Shortly after, she left to create lesson plans for tomorrow. Lena returned to my door the next morning. She asked to talk with red eyes. Sitting on my couch, she said she had loved me for months. She wished we had started our relationship earlier. Lena says she initially declined Chase's invitation. He kept delivering flowers to her school and bringing takeout from her favorite restaurant to her apartment until she agreed to a date. She felt rushed into the relationship. Lena thought she and I might have met if Chase hadn't pushed so hard. I listened to what she said, having chaotic feelings. After she stopped being romantic, I told her I loved her as a friend, but no longer loved her. I didn't feel excited about dating her anymore. Lena's face fell. She wondered whether I was rejecting her out of revenge after years of rejection. I assure her that wasn't the case, but secretly I knew her initial rejection had affected my view of her. Once I discovered she didn't share my romantic feelings, they never returned. It wasn't revenge. My initial need was shared enthusiasm. Lena seemed distraught leaving my flat. Claire called me that night, angry I rejected Lena. She said Lena was my perfect match and I was nasty and vengeful. Claire claimed that Chase, a textbook narcissist, had twisted Lena, and I was punishing her for nothing. Lena texted me the next day, requesting solitude. She suggested we quit seeing each other. This upsets me because I tried to keep our friendship despite my sad sentiments when she rejected me years ago. I still consider Lena a friend and hope we can reconnect. I granted her space and planned to contact her when things calmed down. Claire needed to be told about limits and asked to leave first. 2 weeks have passed since I posted, and things have taken some unexpected turns. Claire joined me for lunch the day after my post. She silently read the Reddit thread on my phone while I picked up my omelet. Her phone was put down and she apologized after reading. Claire agreed that she shouldn't meddle and pledged to back my decision. She even agreed with many commenters that Lena and I should be apart for now. My chat with Claire went better than expected, and I was relieved to resolve at least one stress. After much counsel and my own instincts, I chose to stay away from Lena. We had time to process because I didn't text or phone her. A week after meeting Claire, I attended a friend's Cambridge housewarming celebration. The apartment was full of people, music was loud, and everyone seemed happy. After a hard week at work, I went home around midnight, exhausted. When I got to my building, the front desk clerk said Lena was waiting. Unsure what was so essential that she needed to see me at midnight, I allowed her up. Lena was looking better after months. She smiled broadly and had sparkling eyes when she saw me. She hugged me like she missed me and wanted to hang out. Lena said she saw my party Instagram story and asked our common buddy where I was. When she heard I left early, she came over. I had a few drinks while talking to Lena after drinking at the party. We reminisced about our week apart in a relaxed manner. Lena kissed me again in my kitchen. Due to drink and familiarity, I didn't stop her this time. Lena slept. I got up first the next morning, my head hammering from the cocktails. I went to fetch coffee while Lena slept, unsure what transpired. She was showering when I returned. I waited on the bed with coffees, knowing we had to chat. Lena requested to speak. She admitted I could believe she was using me as a rebound or backup following Chase, but she assured her feelings were genuine. She wanted to show me we could work together and be a couple. I told Lena I was confused. Though the night before had been pleasant, I still didn't feel the same way about her as she did about me. I said my feelings for her were not romantic. Lena sobbed and asked if she could alter my mind. I advised us to take a break to calm down. Perhaps we could revisit the conversation with clearer heads and repair our friendship. But seeing each other now will hurt more. Lena cried more but agreed. After breakfast and easy discussion, she departed my apartment a few hours later. I paced my apartment after she departed, shaken by all that happened. Despite our physical intimacy, my feelings remained the same. Although it was harder than expected, I knew a clean break was right. Later, I realized sleeping with Lena was wrong. Alcohol clouded my judgment, sending confusing signals when she needed clarity. Coffee I brought back wasn't a boyfriend gift. Coffee preceded an uncomfortable conversation. I think Lena needs time to recover from Chase. Abuse produces profound wounds that take time to heal. Therefore, she may not be ready for another relationship. My romantic sentiments for Lena are 95% gone. The night we spent together caused some doubt. But it was due to our physical connection, not my mood. I will maintain our clean break for now. It feels like our cleanest, nicest path forward. Update 2. A month has passed since my last post, and Lena's position has worsened unexpectedly. After Lena departed my flat after our night, I banned contact. 2 days later, she texted to discuss. I said I didn't like it, and that we needed time apart for now. After that, Lena texted several times. First saying she understood, then saying we'd be great together, and eventually saying I was wrong to push her away. These texts stopped coming after I didn't react. I reluctantly admit that our friendship was probably over. That knowledge made me sad, but I thought we had to move on and find pleasure elsewhere. For a year, I've worked with Sophie, 29F, a legal consultant, on a significant acquisition deal. Sophie's intelligence, passion, and wit make even the most tiresome contract reviews tolerable. During our months of working together, I had strong feelings for her, but never acted on them due to our professional connection. I asked Sophie out for coffee months ago, but she graciously rejected it, saying it wouldn't be acceptable while we were working on the sale. I fully respected her boundaries and agreed. We completed our acquisition 2 weeks ago. I invited Sophie to dinner to celebrate after the firm received the announcement email. She smiled and agreed immediately, as if she'd been waiting for this. First date went great. Conversations naturally moved from business to personal interests and objectives. Sophie said she informed her friends about me months ago, which astonished me because I did the same. The challenge of working together while being attracted made us chuckle. Sophie returned to my apartment after the date. Lena lacked our natural mutual connection. Sophie contacted me 2 days later. Our coffee appointment was requested quickly. Sophie was anxious and pushed her phone across the cafe table as I arrived. Lena's LinkedIn message appeared. Lena found out about Sophie and me. She informed Sophie of our relationship in her first communication. Lena said her and I were going through a rough patch. After Sophie didn't react, Lena sent another message accusing me of manipulating women, serial dating and hurting women who fell for me. Sophie was naturally alarmed by these messages. She liked me but didn't want to get engaged in romantic drama. She suggested we quit seeing each other before things escalated. I told Lena the whole story to avoid losing Sophie to false allegations. Sophie saw my original Reddit post about the event. After reading everything, Sophie consented to visit me, but I could see the episode had shaken her trust in our promising relationship. Lena's attempt to ruin my connection with Sophie upset me. I pondered addressing Lena and saying hurtful things. I've never retaliated, even when provoked. However, Sophie and I blocked Lena on all social media and communication methods. I called Claire to tell her, and Lena's behavior startled her too. Claire said she wasn't in touch with Lena anymore, which I trusted. I chose not to notify our mutual friends about Lena's situation. Some friends may only hear Lena's account, but I'm keeping my personal life secret. Only LinkedIn remains for professional reasons after I canceled most social media accounts. Many reviewers on my prior postings told me Lena might be manipulative or unstable, but I ignored them. I now see what they saw that I missed due to our friendship. If Lena contacts me again, I'll set boundaries. I wonder if Lena's friendship with Chase affects her more than we thought. Her destructive behavior may have been taught by an abusive relationship. Despite my anger at her behavior, I remember Lena as compassionate, witty and passionate about teaching, and I see how much she's changed. Update 3. I wanted to inform you on how things went after 3 months. After Lena tried to interfere with my relationship with Sophie, she didn't contact us for a month. Her presence at places she knew I may have increased. She visited my gym, the coffee shop near my office during lunch, then a restaurant where I was having dinner with coworkers. I avoid interaction, and depart swiftly every time. I resolved to take direct action after 5 coincidental meetings. A lawyer urged me to write Lena an official no-contact letter. The letter indicated that I did not want to engage with her, and that any attempts to contact me or visit me would be harassment. Lena emailed me and Sophie a lengthy email 2 days after the letter arrived. She apologized and said she had started therapy to cope with her connection with Chase. She wrote that she admits her actions were wrong and will respect our boundaries. I ignored the email per my lawyer's advice. We agreed to keep Lena out of touch after discussing it with Sophie. Despite the earnest apology, the relationship was too damaged to renew. Claire briefly contacted Lena after the apology email. Claire reports that Lena regrets her behavior and is addressing major concerns related to her relationship with Chase. Claire and Lena met for coffee once, but Claire felt it would be disloyal to me and complex given the past. The drama eventually disbanded our volleyball team. Some friends stayed with me, others with Lena, and some left, uneasy. Some days I miss those friendships, but I know why. Sophie and I have been dating for 4 months. My relationship with Lena was complicated, but this one went smoothly. We have agreed to move in together when my lease ends next month. Working together goes nicely. We're professional at work, but enjoy our personal lives. I learned via mutual contacts that Chase moved to Chicago for work. No one in our former buddy circle talks to him, and Lena filed a police report about the abuse, but didn't press charges. Time has allowed me to process everything. My experience with Lena showed me the importance of setting boundaries and ending friendships. I'm no longer angry at Lena, but I don't want to see her. Through this, Claire and I have become closer as friends. Now a trusted confidant, her friendship with Sophie is growing. We have weekly dinners and feel like we're establishing a healthy social group. I learned from this that sometimes the hardest actions, like cutting ties with a loved one, are vital for your well-being. Moving forward requires letting go, even if it hurts. I appreciate building a life with respectful limits and open communication. Thank you to everyone who advised and supported me during this difficult time. Your advice helped me manage difficult emotions and make better choices. I'll stop posting updates now that this chapter is over. Move on to the next story. Story 2. My jobless cousin bullied my sister after my parents let him stay. My parents chose him over us when I defended her. I'm a 25 female and live with my parents while finishing my social work master's. Our family has always been close despite sibling rivalries and disagreements. I'm the middle child between my older brother Jake, 28 male, and younger sister Mia, 21 female. Our parents raised us to always look out for each other. Our parents, David, 55 male, and Linda, 53 female, have always supported our goals. They encouraged us to study, even if it meant staying home to save money. Due to this, I don't pay rent but contribute to utilities and groceries. Our arrangement has worked wonderfully for years. Jake returned home last year after quitting his marketing job. When his firm restructured, he was living in the city and climbing the corporate ladder. He lost his job and struggled to pay rent in his luxury apartment. Jake returned home to regroup and find his footing, so our parents welcomed him. Mia, the youngest, attends community college at home. She's always been our most sensitive and artistic. Mia is pursuing her photography passion, while Jake and I choose more traditional careers. Our parents are supportive but worried about her field's financial security. Our cousin Alex, 23 million, came to be with us 2 months ago, changing our life. My mom's sister's son, Alex, was our vacation and summer companion. He was always the life of the party, quick with a joke and never took anything seriously. Alex struggled despite his easygoing exterior. Alex struggled with his parents' breakup throughout high school. He acted out, got in trouble, and quit college after a semester. He's bounced between jobs for years, never finding his niche. His recent relationship with Sarah seemed to change him. Alex seemed to be settling down and planning his future for the first time in years. We were surprised when Alex arrived 2 months earlier, looking lost and defeated. He said Sarah broke up with him and kicked him out of their flat. He was too embarrassed to return to his mother's house and had nowhere else to go. Since our parents are loving, they offered him our guest room till he recovered. All appeared well at first. Alex was appreciative for the support and tried to help around the house. He did the dishes, mowed the lawn, and helped Jake with job applications without being asked. We hoped this would wake Alex up and change his life. After a month with Alex, I noticed a difference in household dynamics. It started off subtly, a snarky remark or a backhanded compliment. Most comments seemed to target Mia. I originally dismissed it as Alex's regular mocking. He'd always been a jokester, even as a kid. As time went on, I couldn't ignore the pattern. Alex seemed to intentionally upset Mia. Alex said, "Isn't that skirt a little short for a family dinner?" Or, "I bet you're trying to impress that barista at the coffee shop." When Mia talked about her photography projects, Alex rolled his eyes and said something about starving artists. I tried to discuss it discreetly with Alex. I approached him in the kitchen one afternoon when everyone was out. I said, "Hey Alex," attempting to be casual. "I've noticed you've been pretty hard on Mia lately. Is everything okay?" Alex shrugged, grabbed a beer from the fridge. "I'm joking," he said. "Mia must toughen up to succeed in life. Besides, it's not my fault if she can't take a joke." "I didn't want to create house tension," he said. "I choose to monitor the situation. I spent more time in the common areas while Alex and Mia were home to deter misbehavior. Mia was increasing her withdrawal. Her living room was her favorite spot for sketching and laptop photo processing. She mostly holds up in her room now. After hesitating, she told me Alex's comments were hurting her. "I can't do anything right while he's around," she said, crying. "But I don't want to tell Mom and Dad. By keeping Alex, they're doing so much." I assure Mia that her feelings were valid, and that she had a right to feel comfortable at home. Mia asked me not to tell our parents about the situation. Alex was already struggling, and she didn't want to cause controversy. A family supper last week resolved matters. All of us were at the table for Mom's excellent lasagna. The conversation started lightly with Jake mentioning a promising employment opportunity and Dad planning a weekend fishing vacation. Suddenly Mia revealed that she was going on a date with a photography classmate. Alex's demeanor changed when she spoke. His sparkle in his eyes made me apprehensive as he leaned forward. Well, he sarcastically remarked. It appears our tiny Mia is finally expressing herself. Mia flushed red and stared at her plate as Alex interrogated her about the guy, asking increasingly personal and inappropriate questions. "So, is this guy aware of your, shall we say, limited experience? Or, are you planning to fake it till you make it?" He sneezed. I saw Mia shrinking in her chair, mortified. I tried to change the subject by asking Dad about his fishing trip, but Alex kept going. He turned to me and narrowed his eyes. "What's the matter, sis? Afraid little Mia can't handle a little teasing? Or are you jealous that she has a date and you don't?" "Enough, Alex," I snap. "You're a guest in this house, and you need to show some respect. Just because your life is a mess doesn't mean you can take it out on Mia or anyone else." The table fell silent, and everyone stared at me in shock. Alex's face contorted with anger. He stood up suddenly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You know what? I don't need this. I'm out of here." He stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. The silence was deafening. Dad cleared his throat and said, "I think we all need to calm down. Slowly. Alex is family and he's going through a tough time. We need to be more understanding." I couldn't believe the words. "Dad, did you not hear how he was talking to Mia? To all of us? That's not okay, tough time or not." Mom tried to intervene, suggesting we take a breather and discuss things when everyone had calmed down. But Alex didn't return for 2 days. When he did, my parents called a family meeting. They said Alex would be staying with us for at least another month and that we needed to get along. I tried to explain Alex's behavior toward Mia, but my parents dismissed it as cousin rivalry and told us to resolve it ourselves. Now the house is unbearably tense. Alex hardly speaks to me, throwing me dirty looks anytime we're in the same room. Mia appears more reclusive than ever, spending practically all her time in her closed room. Jake has been avoiding it, saying it's not his concern. I feel like I'm the only one standing up for Mia, but I'm not sure if I crossed a line with what I said to Alex. Should I apologize to keep the peace or stand my ground? I don't want to make things worse for Mia, but I don't think it's right to let Alex treat her this way in our home. I don't know what to do next. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since my last post, and I wish I could say things have improved, but the situation has only escalated. After much internal debate, I decided to try to reconcile with Alex. One morning in the kitchen, I apologized for my harsh words at dinner and explained that while I still cared about Mia, I could have expressed it more tactfully. Alex seemed to accept my apology, even cracking a smile and saying, "Water under the bridge, cuz." I felt hopeful that we could move past this and cooperate peacefully. Despite our apparent reconciliation, Alex's behavior toward Mia hasn't improved at all. If anything, it seems to have gotten worse, as if he's trying to make up for lost time. He's become more subtle in his jabs, making innocent-sounding comments with a clear mockery undercurrent. I helped Mia choose her outfit and gave her a pep talk before she left for her date with the guy from her photography class last weekend. She had been nervous all week, changing her outfit multiple times and worrying about every detail. As she left, I felt protective sisterly pride. Alex was watching a basketball game on the couch in the living room when Mia came home later that night. When she came in, he muted the TV and sat up, displaying a predatory grin. Well, look who's doing the walk of shame," he said, his voice dripping with insinuation. Mia tried to brush him off, mumbling a quick goodnight as she headed upstairs. Alex wasn't ready to let her off the hook, so he started grilling her about the date, getting more crass and invasive. "Come on, Mia, don't be shy," he said. Did he get to second base or did you strike out again? I was in the kitchen doing dishes, but I heard everything. Alex, that's enough, I said firmly. Mia doesn't have to tell you about her date. Alex held up his hands and mocked surrender. Whoa, easy there, big sis. I'm just looking out for my little cousin. Someone's got to make sure she's not getting taken advantage of, right? He turned back to Mia, his voice becoming patronizing. Mia snapped, releasing months of pent-up rage as she shouted, "Shut up, Alex. Quit talking. I'm weary of your jokes and comments. Not hilarious. I feel horrible and they're useless." The room became silent as Alex and I were astonished by Mia's scream. Then Alex laughed, a harsh mocking sound that made my skin crawl. Wow, looks like tiny Mia finally got a backbone. He sneezed. Maybe now you can keep a guy interested for more than one day. I was furious and stepped between Alex and Mia, my voice low and dangerous. That's it, Alex. You need to apologize right now or I swear to God. Alex stood up to his full height. Run to mommy and daddy again. They don't care. They're too busy feeling sorry for poor miserable Alex to realize what's really going on. He went off to the guest room, slamming the door so hard that the portraits on the wall rattled. Mia cried, and I spent the next hour comforting her in her bed. Between sobs, she admitted that Alex's behavior had been getting worse over the past few weeks, and that she was afraid to be alone in the house with him, always locking her door at night. The next day, I decided to have a serious talk with our parents. I waited until Alex had left for a job interview, or so he said, before sitting them down in the living room. My parents' reaction was shocking and disappointing. My mom shook her hands nervously, her brow furrowed with concern. But not for Mia. I explained everything that had been happening, from Alex's constant belittling comments to the incident after Mia's date. I emphasized how uncomfortable and unsafe Mia was feeling in her own home. "Honey," she said, "you may be exaggerating. Alex is struggling so much. Alex lost his job, girlfriend, and home at once, so it's no wonder he's behaving out. Mia's young." "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice rising in disbelief. "Alex is an adult. His hard time doesn't give him the right to harass Mia or anyone else. She doesn't feel safe in her own home." My parents exchanged a look that made my stomach drop. My father grew stern. "We appreciate that you're trying to help your sister, but you need to stay out of this. Alex is family, and we won't kick him out when he has nowhere else to go." "So what? We just let him keep treating Mia like this?" I demanded. My mother sobbed. "We'll talk to Alex. We're not kicking anyone out, but if you keep causing problems, we may have to adjust our financial support. Your tuition isn't cheap, you know." I felt slapped. I couldn't believe my parents were prioritizing Alex's comfort over Mia's safety and using my education to keep me quiet. I stormed out of the room, my mind reeling. Now I'm at a loss. Mia is miserable. Alex is unapologetic. My parents seem determined to ignore everything. Jake still wants to help, saying it's not his problem, but I feel like I'm the only one trying to protect Mia, and I'm afraid of the consequences if I push too hard. I'm starting to wonder if I should move out, but I don't know how I'd afford it while finishing my degree. Leaving Mia alone makes me sick, but I'm running out of options. Does anyone have any advice on how to support Mia without alienating my family or jeopardizing my education? I feel trapped in an impossible situation and don't know what to do. Update 2. The past week has been a roller coaster of emotions and events that I'm still processing. After my last update, I felt trapped. My parents refused to acknowledge Alex's seriousness, leaving me feeling helpless and frustrated. I knew I needed to do something more concrete to protect Mia, but I was afraid of overstepping or making things worse. After much internal debate, I made a decision I'm still not comfortable with. I set up a hidden camera in the living room, which is unethical and possibly illegal, but I needed evidence to show my parents that they couldn't deny it. I borrowed a small camera from a friend in my program and carefully placed it on an angled bookshelf to capture most of the living room and part of the kitchen. After 3 days of anxiously checking the footage each night when everyone was asleep, I saw nothing particularly damning. Just the usual family comings and goings. But on the 4th day, Alex cornered Mia in the kitchen while she was getting a glass of water. He blocked her path, leaning in close as he spoke. The audio was muffled, but I could hear Mia's fear as she asked him to move. Alex reached out and tried to touch her face, but she jerked away, knocking over her glass. As water spilled across the counter, Mia ducked under Alex's arm and ran upstairs. I was shaking with anger as I watched the footage. This was no longer about snide comments or inappropriate jokes, this was physically intimidating. I went to confront Alex, but he wasn't in the house. I found Mia curled up on her bed with her headphones on. She cried when I showed her the video, admitting that Alex had been getting more physical with his jokes in recent weeks. We showed our parents the video when they got home from work. My mom cried and my dad turned red with anger. Instead of yelling at Alex, he yelled at me. "You violated everyone's privacy. What were you thinking?" I was shocked. I tried to talk about Alex's behavior, but my parents kept talking about me breaking their trust and how low I would go. When I told my dad that the camera had caught Alex assaulting Mia, he said, "It was probably just a misunderstanding," as if to say that Alex was probably just teasing. Mia, who had been quiet throughout the confrontation, stood up and said, "I can't believe you're defending him," shaking her head. "I'm not safe here anymore. I want to leave." That's when I knew we had to leave. I told my parents they were failing to protect their daughter and that I couldn't stand by and watch. I helped Mia pack a bag, threw some of my own things in, and we left that night. Jake finally intervenes and is trying to mediate between us and our parents, but they're more concerned about me overreacting and dividing the family than Alex's behavior. If I don't apologize for the camera incident at home, they'll cut me off financially. I'm looking into getting Mia and me our own place, but it's going to be tight. I'm also considering going to the police with the video footage, but I'm worried about Mia. How do I protect Mia and myself while dealing with the fallout from my family? Has anyone dealt with unsupportive parents? Update 3. A month has passed since my last update, and so much has changed. After much discussion with Mia and advice from a domestic violence hotline, we decided to file a police report about Alex's behavior. It was hard, but we knew it was necessary for our safety and to prevent Alex from harming others. The officers who took our statement were understanding and professional. They reviewed my video footage and took detailed accounts from Mia and me about Alex's behavior. They said Alex's actions may have been harassment rather than assault, but the video of him cornering Mia was particularly concerning. The police also interviewed our parents and Jake, which seemed to wake them up to the seriousness of the situation. Mom called me in tears, apologizing for not believing us sooner, and begging us to come home. Dad was more reserved, but Jake said he seemed shaken by the police involvement. We also contacted our aunt, Alex's mother, to let her know what was going on. Instead of defending Alex, she broke down and revealed that this wasn't the first time he had shown inappropriate behavior toward women. The family had swept away incidents in high school and college, hoping Alex would grow out of it. Due to the police report and investigation, Alex is now facing charges of harassment and attempted sexual assault. He's been ordered to stay away from Mia and me and is no longer living at our parents' house. Last I heard, he's staying with a friend and must attend counseling. Mom has been calling daily to check on us and offering to pay for Mia's therapy. Dad is still struggling to accept everything, but he's trying. He helped us move our remaining things out of the house and respects our need for space. Jake has surprisingly stepped up in a big way. He's been mediating between us and our parents, helping them understand our perspective. He's also supported our decision to involve the police, saying he wishes he had taken our concerns more seriously earlier. Mia and I have found a small, affordable apartment. It's not much, but it's ours and safe. I work part-time at a local community center to cover expenses, and Mia does freelance photography. Juggling work, school, and our new living situation is difficult, but we're managing. I told my graduate advisor about my education. They were very understanding and helped me create a more flexible schedule. I may have to extend my program by a semester, but I'm determined to finish my degree. We're taking things day by day, focusing on healing and moving forward. I've learned that trusting your instincts and asking for help are crucial. Thank you to everyone who gave advice and support throughout this ordeal. Your words of encouragement meant more than you know. If anyone else is in a similar circumstance, please ask for help. You're not alone and deserve home safety. Thanks for watching and being part of the drama. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a wild news story.